Just like in the movies.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I am Jared. I'm here with Brit. What's up, Brit?
Hello, hello.
And today we are discussing the new 52 because it's episode 52. And you know what that means? We have been doing this show for a full year now.
Yes.
Wow. So, Brit, let's start with that. How about doing this show for a whole freaking year?
It has been very exciting, very and fun. I mean, we was talking about it for a year, over a year, and then to actually have it, and coming up on our first, anniversary of this it's been a blast, and it's came so fast too. I mean, so yeah, I'm just really having an incredible time, with all the research and the discussions, and I'm really enjoying when we have the live sessions. It's so much fun with the commentary, and yeah, I'm just having fun.
Yeah, so let's talk. Say hello to the people. What's up, Tavia? What's up, Cameron? Randy, what's up, my brother? What's up, Random Prodic? What's up, Daniel? And Jay Heat is in the house. So, like we said before, we're talking about the new 52, which, for those of you that probably I think you guys probably know by now, Britt and I are big new 52 fans because this started a lot of interesting stuff for like me. It got me into comics, but let's get started. So the new 52, otherwise known as the Age of SuperWonder. So Britt, why don't you start off by introducing the new 52 to the kind people at home?
All right, so the new 52 was a revamp for 2011 for DC, because obviously their post-crisis continuity was a mess in the gutter, and the comics line needed to be revitalized, or they were gonna, kick the bucket, and WB was going to shut them down. So you have this line-wide relaunch of basically trying to upgrade the heroes, the characters in modern day, for a new generation, and while also bringing them back to, I would say, a little bit of pre-crisis as well. But that didn't go, quite well for the post-crisis fans.
Oh,
so
boy.
you have, and also you have where they did shiny number ones instead of, continuing on with the legacy numbers. They completely started. It's basically just wiping the slate clean, except for Batman and Green Lantern. But
Yeah,
everyone
we'll
else
talk about
needed
that.
a complete reboot, and it's just wiping the slate clean because, again, post-crisis was so messy, and the investment wasn't there. So when you want to basically start fresh, and that's what New 52 was, and it did accomplish that, but not everyone agreed.
Yeah, and the thing about the new 52, the problem with it, well, no, the problem with the way people perceive it is that, first off, post-crisis fans don't like change. That's clearly established. And the thing about it is, like, ignoring the problems with this initiative, the thing about it is that post-crisis closed fans like to be catered to, and DC does that a lot. But when they're slightly challenged by something that sells more, like the new 52 did, and I use that as the one example. See, here's the thing. Someone told me that, like, oh, you use the Superman Wonder Woman book as an example of when Superman and Wonder Woman saying that Superman and Wonder Woman would sell if they did it. And I'm like, because that's the one example where they went all in, and look what happened. It was one of the, if not the top selling books at DC. So of course I use that as an example. But the point is like, I think post-crisis fans were and are threatened. That's why, much like Zack Snyder's universe, they blame this for the state DC is in.
Yeah. which we'll go into. But yeah, you have the 52 titles, and they also wanted to emphasize lesser characters, give them a chance as well. And the Dio, he said that he would rather try to take the risk of trying to pushing unfamiliar characters into the mainstream than to keep, you know, basically spinning their wheels doing the same thing over and over again with the same status quo that obviously even older fans wasn't invested in anymore.
Weren't. It's really that simple. So then we get to, let's talk about this. New 52 was the last time there was actual excitement in the industry. Yeah, there was, because everyone's like, I could get in on this without worrying about continuity. I mean, that's why I got in. I got in around 2013 or so. So it's about a year after the new 52 kind of launched. So I was like, okay, you know what? I don't have to read anything else. I just have to start on these books. That's why it worked. New 52 sells millions of issues. Some so-called DC fans, this era is not valid. Yeah, it's popular because it doesn't feature their stuff. And we'll talk about some of the critiques later on the episode. It also launched with 52 titles. Not all, to a degree, yes, but a lot of those were canceled. So that's kind of the way that worked. Had they given the pre-Flashpoint timeline an actual ending and not abruptly dropped it, the new 52 might have been more accepted. Yes
Well,
and no, because
yeah,
here's why. You still would have had those crazy fans like rejecting it, saying it's not my DC, right, Brit?
right. And the thing is, they the pressure of WB though, that I think that's
Yeah,
the thing
they
that
didn't have time.
yeah, a lot of people are intentionally ignoring is that WB had them pressured, and especially with the success of Nolan's Batman, it was like, okay, we have this billion-dollar movie, um, that's successful. We need these characters to be just as successful with, merchandise as far as toys, shirts, uh, different type of apparel. And then you have the comic books as well if you want to keep that going. But with comic books, it's a niche. And so it's like it's a very limited thing. But if you want people to know the source material, you just have to keep things fresh. And
Yeah,
with with Batman, it's like you can do different uh, status quos. You can have him in different genres. You can have him in different, just anything,
because
and
he's
it
a
works.
dude. So it's like
Exactly.
there's not much. The thing about Batman, and we talked about this on the show like last week for Anuchi Capes. The idea with Batman is that since he's a dude and doesn't have powers, it's easier for him to be in certain other places. But when you get characters like Superman, especially Wonder Woman, you need some way to like start. And here's the funny part. Remember, Brit, it was when we talked about Dan DiDio's comments and we found out that one of the impetuses for this initiative was to wipe out the Lois marriage. And remember how vindicated we felt, Brit? That was a good day.
Right, because with that, with knowing that marriage, and that was something even Grant Morrison um, said in, I believe it was 1998. So it was only a year or so after they actually got married, and they wanted to, retcon that marriage because the market was not for it. You had the Spider-Man marriage, and that works because Peter Parker, I mean, he's a regular dude that ended up with powers, but that's who he is. Superman is totally different. He's an alien, you have like this, um, and like I said, even Grant Morrison to say that he's Paul Bunyan
Mm-hmm.
level, and you have to be extraordinary. So to, basically downsize him to just the Daily Planet, to just Lois, to this normal thing, you are watering the character down. So,
Well, plus the other thing is, so when I talked to Comic Historian about Lois, RIP, by the way, he said the problem with having a non-powered love interest for a superhero is that there's very little you can eventually do with that person. Because yeah, you could do like, because he said this. Ultimately, it comes down to Superman saving Lois Lane. Because what is she gonna do against like Metallo or any of those? Nothing. Where when you get to like Superman and Wonder Woman, hello, you get like she can cut Metallo in half. So it's like there's so much more that you can do. Wonder Woman does not need saving, although sometimes it's fun when they do save. Write an article. We're working on something for the Comics League site. I'm gonna tease on that, but Brit and I have thought of doing that. But the thing is, that's the thing. What a lot of comic book fans don't realize that. See, a lot of comic book fans are jealous. They say, as long as it reflects the way I want it to be, I don't care if DC like falls. Because again, that's I have personally seen people say this. So I'm like, then I'm sorry, you are not really DC fans if you are fine with the whole company failing.
Yeah, and also with the what I want to say with the
Yeah,
relationship dynamic was it's not just about the saving and the powers and stuff. It's also the what you're exploring with their characters. Like with a normal person, it's just a normal person. I don't know what
mm-hmm.
how much more you can explore with that. You know,
Yeah.
we are normal people, and it's not much, you know, unless you are some type of have a double life of, I don't know, being a
I
secret
may,
spy.
yeah, that's the thing, Britt. I'm actually secretly Jason Bourne, so when I'm not doing like SuperWonder Legacy, I'm over there doing Spike stuff.
Right, unless you're doing something like that, it's not interesting. I don't care for, um, and the thing is with Lois, her whole thing is having a pulsar. And it's like, okay, I really don't care for that because it's a man-made.
Even
Um,
beyond that, she's like the greatest journalist, but couldn't put together that Clark Kent and Superman were the same dude.
right. And you're also exploring with Clark and Diana their backgrounds, their unique backgrounds. As Diana is an Amazon and Clark is an alien, and that heritage there. I don't see human heritage. Honestly, is not much to explore unless you want to get into the very, you know, racial, political
Mm-hmm.
side that many want to ignore anyway, with the human superiority and stuff like that. But with Clark and Diana's, you know, their heritage though, and how you were supposed to celebrate cultures and celebrate, you know, being unique. That is and also the reaction to the world just at large of these powerful beings being so, you know, filled with this kindness and hearts of gold and compassion to want to make a better world. Um, and again, it's about understanding too. Lois can't understand that double life, that putting yourself actually in those type of situations. Um, so yeah, it's much more than powers, but look at what Williamson is doing now with the soft reboot or whatever. He's giving Lois powers, you know. So if something is wrong with Clark and Diana being together, you're you know, you're basically contradicting yourself with giving
Hashtag
Lois powers.
hypocrite.
Yes, very it's very hypocritical. And I see a lot of Superman fans say, "Oh well, they're already married, so she can have powers," and they are so uh
Clark and Diana were close to being married in the
right.
book, and you said that didn't work. So I don't know
Yeah.
where they're going with this.
So they are definitely full of sugar honey iced tea for me, and I just don't understand the whole being hypocrites when again your whole argument against Clark and Diana being together is their powers, and you know, supers being with supers isn't interesting, but yet you're just fine with Lois ending up having powers. So yeah, I just that whole thing I don't get, and it's temporary, I guess, but yeah.
It's not gonna last. That's the thing about comics. They're cyclical at this point, and we all know it. So we're gonna start off by talking about the best parts of the new 52. Now, people, you're watching a show called SuperWonder Legacy. What do you think is going to be our first thing on the favorite part of the new 52? But SuperWonder. So, Brit, let's tell the people why we like this so much.
All right. So again, for me, it's all about the emphasis on them being outsiders. And again, it's in black and white in Justice League 12. They aren't gods, but they aren't mortal. And that is the thing. They don't think of themselves as gods. So for people who say, oh, they're just like this couple that is above humanity or whatever, and it distances them from humanity. No, it doesn't. It's right there in the books that's like point blank telling you they don't want that. That is not what this relationship is. It's more so like, yeah, it's looked upon as a relationship of celebrities, whatever, because they're famous
They're
superheroes.
superheroes. What do you?
You
And you know
know,
what's kind of funny? Lois Lane is technically a celebrity as well. So where are you going with this?
I mean, she's a celebrity in the sense of the fans, and it's more
I
so
mean, to a
said than
degree,
actually shown.
she is a celebrity. So the way I'm going with this is that a lot of people are very hypocritical with this. But Randy
Yeah,
brings up
it
a
is.
good point. DC knew 52's problems. A lot of creators didn't want to let go of post-crisis. That is also a problem. You had
Yeah,
creators openly discouraging post-crisis, like where you had some artists that were trying to draw less lines on the Superman costume because they didn't like the lines, and I'm like, no, that's not the way it's supposed to go. He's not wearing armor. First off, I just want to be clear on this. They made this very clear, but that's the character design. The way I would have handled that if DC had balls to say, if you don't want to write the characters this way, you don't get to write the characters. It's that simple. You're writing Superman. You're writing this version of Superman.
exactly. And the thing is, it's like, how are you limiting yourself as a writer, as a creator, if you aren't trying to understand that this is a new generation, and you are trying to bring new fans in to keep this comic to keep comic books going. Because again, in 2011 or 2010 uh 2010, yeah, WB was going to shut down DC Comics. That
They
whole
would have
division.
licensed out the comics to other companies, but to be clear, yeah, DC was on the timetable. So I'm like, it's because of your guys' boring storytelling that DC got to the point where they needed a reboot. So really, you're not that's why. Really, if I were in charge of DC, I would say it's because of you guys that we almost got shut down. So I'm not taking your BS, Mark
Right.
Waid, or any of these other characters, writers.
Writers. So again, for you to constantly be complaining, and again, as a creative, as a writer, as whatever, being a writer means coming out of your comfort zone as well. With the even fan fiction, with the story that I did with Jid, with the story that I'm doing with you, all of these different story ideas, we are putting the characters in different situations. We are keeping the core of the characters, but we're just trying to broaden, just the perspective of them.
And by the
And
way, I just want to bring this up. We're not doing pure new 52 when we do these characters. We're borrowing elements from it, of course, but we're basically, at least the way Brit and I do this, is it's paying homage to the good from every era of DC that we possibly can. Because yes, Brit and I critique DC a lot, but there's good in every single era. Hell, when Brit and I talked about post-crisis, I spent a lot of time talking about how awesome Green Lantern is. So that alone is like, post-crisis was not as bad. And there's some good post-crisis Superman and Wonder Woman, but a lot of it got boring real fast.
right, so um, with with the story, it's keeping their cores, but also we do put what we liked in different eras and put it all together. And that's basically what New 52 was was supposed to be with New 52 Superman. He was supposed to go back to his actual basics. The 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 basics that so many fans say now, they think that Superman was created in 1986 by John Byrne.
No, he wasn't.
But
Thank
no,
God.
he
Because if he did, Superman's main thing would be making out with 14-year-olds.
you're not letting me go.
No, I'm never letting that go because that is stupid. And that alone, if again, I say this a lot, but if I were in charge of DC, I would say we're never publishing or reprinting anything by John Byrne again because of that. We're done.
True.
Go ahead.
Right, but yeah, but bringing back the champion of the oppressed, it wasn't about his costume. It wasn't about, being with Lois or anything. It was about him taking down corrupted government. And that's what he did in Jeans and Tee. And so many fans had a problem with the fact that he was just wearing a t-shirt and jeans, or that his hair wasn't, you
It didn't
know,
have the S curl, or that he was wearing a suit that looked like armor.
right.
Trust me, it was not armor. A lot of people thought it was because of like some of the lines look like armor panels, but again, it was just like a more alien version of the suit. And I'm like that. That's the thing about this. That's what. See, here's the thing. Again, and I always say this. I'm going to use me as an example. Longest time, I thought Superman was a bit of a doofus, a big galoot, if you will, Brit. So the thing is like when I started really into comics, it was like New 52 / Man of Steel era. So I watched Man of Steel, and then I read New 52 Clark, and I was like, okay, now I get it now, because it was saying, no, here's what Superman really is. He's the savior of the oppressed. He helps anyone. And yes, he has these powers, but he struggles with very human struggles. And that's the thing. A lot of Superman fans don't, they just want to see Superman show up and punch an alien and be done with it. They don't want to see him struggle. And that's partly why a lot of them had like
Right.
such a violent reaction to like the Snyderverse and this version of Superman.
Yeah, you have this Superman that he wasn't a government stooge either.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
that the government, he pissed off the government basically.
So many
And
times.
and when you have a hero that post-crisis Superman, he had some good to him. But he was very much the poster boy for, like I said, being a government stooge and the American way in the worst way.
But the hilarious part also, when I think about it, is, it's one of the criticisms that our boy got was he was too dark and brooding. And I'm like, have you read Post-Crisis Superman? The dude's
Right. I mean,
extremely dark and brooding. It's just you tend to ignore those parts and only highlight, like the Burn stuff. But I'm like, Post-Crisis Superman got he was also very annoyed when people need their help. This guy, our boy, actively sought people to help. So I'm like, and you know what's kind of funny? People always point to his book that he was brooding. I read his book; he wasn't. With the and even with that, in the Superman Wonder Woman book, because a lot of them, deep down, a lot of Superman fans like this book, because guess what? He was very much acting like the Superman that they claim that post-crisis was.
yeah. Okay. So another thing is that post-crisis Superman, he was very whiny.
Yes.
And the thing is, he was able to go to his parents, having the Kents alive. But the thing is, Golden Age Superman, his parents weren't alive. I mean, they really, it wasn't
Briefly, they
settled.
were.
They were, but they died. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like they weren't, you know, as relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically had, like, I think 3 origins. It was he was adopted by a motorcyclist. Before
Motorcycles. So he was
he
Harley Davidson Superman, is what you're telling me.
he Martha and Jonathan, I think her name was Mary at first.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even settle on a name. And then or he grew up in an orphanage. And honestly, the Tomorrowverse, they had Earth 2 Superman. He was Martha and Jonathan Kent died. He grew up in an orphanage. Um, I mean, that Lois, she was irrelevant and really uh didn't need to be mentioned, but she lived and died off screen, but he still remained the hero, you know.
Well, even on
So
that, that was pretty much golden age Superman when it comes to like the costume and then the fact that he jumps. But going to Superman and Wonder Woman, thing about this pairing that worked is that first off, they don't need secret identities, because ultimately the thing about Lois is that ultimately Superman will always hold back a part of himself when it comes to Lois because she doesn't understand him. Now, I don't mean the crude like Kevin Smith joke. What I
yeah,
mean is that even though that scene was freaking hilarious, the part that I am talking about is like she ultimately she's not going to understand everything he goes through. Wonder Woman very much understands what he's going
what he's going
through
through.
as Superman, and Justice League 12. She understands not fitting in because she doesn't know where she fits into the world as Wonder Woman or Diana. And Clark goes through that exact same
Same
struggle.
thing.
And that's why I always say, if you want to know why Superman and Wonder Woman works, read Justice League 12. Read the last like 2 or 3 pages of Justice League 12 that explains it to a T.
Yeah, you have where in post crisis, Superman, he, even Diana too, with being with Steve, they have to make compromises and belittle who who they are. And just like with the secret identity, when Bendis, well, I would say it
Oh
was,
God, Brit,
I'm
Brit, Brit,
sorry.
Brit, Brit. Okay, you know what? Why is everyone saying this man's name?
Why did you say that name?
With the story, I'm so sorry.
It's
With
all
the
good.
story, um, they basically put the genie back in the bottle because of Lois. You know, I think it was Batman who said, "Did you consider how you would put Lois in danger with knowing, your secret identity out?"
No, and
Or
Bendis didn't. God damn it, I
it
said it.
was
The thing is, they had the potential there. They could have done something cool with like the Daily Plan's bond because they know that Superman works there. But no.
right, because what he wanted to do was show that this was he equated it to a coming out story of, and everyone like embraces him instead of showing the
Yeah, that
consequences.
that would not happen nowadays if someone found out that like, oh yeah, Clark Kent was Superman. No, and I remember hearing him say because no one buys secret identities anymore, and I'm like, that is the problem with having Marvel creatives work on DC comics because guess what? You get Marvel sensibilities because in Marvel, no one has a secret identity. For the most part, no one has a secret identity. So when you come over here and go, oh, that works for DC. No, it doesn't, because DC is the one that says no. Like no one knows Bruce Wayne is Batman, and no one knows that Clark Kent is Superman. But I love how they put the genie back in the bottle, where they basically said if Superman tells anyone, they get a heart
Heart
attack
attack. Yeah, that was kind of cruel. Like, why are you punishing other people for his lie? You know,
for his
no,
stupidity. Yeah.
that doesn't sit well with me because again, you are um handing him everything on a silver platter. And so it's the same thing of Superman is supposed to be like the greatest hero. Post crisis Lois, she was deemed as the trophy wife, the glorified housewife, even in Rebirth, of being this mortal woman. And
Superman's girlfriend, Lois Lane.
yeah, and even with Jurgens for Rebirth, he said, "Well, I only consider myself as human, and that's why John was named after Jonathan and Sam Lane. I mean, even though Sam Lane was a xenophobe and
No,
racist
he hated Superman. It's like
and
even
hated him,
even in the I saw a screenshot of a lot of a scene from the Superman and Lois show with Dean Cain, and she says, but you're Superman," and stuff. He goes, "No, Superman is what I can do. Clark Kent is who I am," and I'm like, "Nope, nope, don't like that. I hate
right?
that."
Yeah, it. Clark first is very complex because he is Superman, he is Kal, he is Clark. It's all in one. To try to separate it and say one is more, real over the other, it's too much. No, that's not how you do things. And it's also very insensitive and offensive to actual immigrants. Like,
Yes.
so many people have to hide who they are. Even, as an African American, I can't hide my skin. So for Superman to be this alien from a total different planet, and they write it as if he celebrates or honor his heritage is deemed as bad, or he's deemed as the alien without humanity, or or something like that. So you write him as, I am only human if I act as if I am only a regular Caucasian American, and he is literally just passing, and that's okay. But what does that look like for a reader who is an immigrant or of a different um of race that
Feels
sees this?
different in any way, because you
Yeah,
could be like a straight up white dude and have certain things that you have to hide from people, and you're a bit, because again, Superman and Wonder Woman, what does that work? Because because here's what Wonder Woman brings to Superman, and literally the first issue of the Charles Sewell book captured this perfectly, where she's like, Amazons embrace who we are, and like and the world be damned, and she kind of teaches him to come out of his shell more, because at the end of that arc he goes dancing with her. So it's more like that's what they bring to each other, is that they bring out these certain parts of her. And then what Superman brings to Wonder Woman is actually brought up pretty well in the Justice League book, and I'll get to that when we talk about our favorite books. It's the idea that he goes, you don't have to be Wonder Woman all the time. You can recharge your batteries and you could still lead a relatively normal life being a superhero. And that's the thing about that. When people say it's too boring, or that they don't really teach each other anything, and I'm like, I could see why you would think they don't actually teach each other. But you see, it requires this magical concept, Brit. It's this thing that no one has tried before. It's called reading the damn books.
exactly.
You actually have to read. I know for comic book Twitter, that's like a Marvel concept, pun intended, but I'm just like, actually read the damn book. But anyway,
Exactly.
next, favorite parts of the new 52, starting fresh. And again, for this, except for Batman and Green Lantern. But actually, Benny had a fantastic line for this. He goes, I was only reading Batman and Green Lantern. So when I found out that, I was like, oh, cool. But it's like, with this, fresh start for all these characters. I didn't have to know anything about Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, or Justice League pretty much. And I was like, okay, this is cool. Because what that allows you to do is sample other books. Because if I was a purely Superman writer and I've never read Wonder Woman before, be, partly because maybe I wasn't interested, or maybe I didn't like the continuity was very like intimidating. Now I could go, oh, cool. It's starting fresh. I don't have to know everything unless you're Batman and Green Lantern. So I'm just going to pick up, I'll pick up Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Cyborg, Justice League. So what that allows you to do, if you do a complete line-wide reboot, this is what people forget. It's more likely that people will pick up more than their usual load.
Exactly. And also the thing is, going back with, I would say Diana.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the issue controversial with the Zeus origin.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already made my stance that, as far as storytelling wise, with how we do it, and fan fiction, or just my line of thinking as a writer myself, it depends on the story.
Mm-hmm.
But I lean more to the Clay origin because of what it means, and
Mm-hmm.
what it, as a Wonder Woman story, and involving the mostly the goddesses, and Wonder Woman supposed, being this female empowerment, this story really of a mother and daughter. So, you know that's why I tend to lean more on the Clay origin. The Zeus origin, it I did not like, and I understand that that is within mythology of making Hera the villain because she is, villainized
Very
in
much
most of it.
so. And it's kind of funny. Blood of Zeus kind of did this, but they gave her a redemption. That's the thing about it.
Exactly. That is the only reason why I liked Blood of Zeus because they did give her redemption. However, but with New 52 and even during I guess it was I don't know what era this was within DC currently, Dawn of DC or whatever, but the last arc, I think it was Clone Rad, but Hera was definitely just like the villain and I didn't like it because she is basically being, villainized because of Zeus. And Zeus is the main villain to me, honestly. Having
He
the
kind of
affairs,
is because she would be fine if he didn't cheat on her constantly.
right. And I mean, turning Diana into just a Zeus billion, billion, you know, bastard kid or whatever, yeah, it does take away her uniqueness. So again, I understand, as a writer, how you can see the potential in that of the godly drama. I love that. I love writing them as dramatic and everything. However, you can still do that with the clay origin. And again, that is what I'm also um emphasizing on with the story with Jid because again, Wonder Woman putting her back into the story as mother and daughter, also the female empowerment and the patriarchal type influences that are bringing Wonder Woman down. Tom King, the way he is writing Diana is mostly
Mm.
because of trying to you want to elevate her with the Trinity, you know, of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. But at the same time, first, the concept of the Trinity, it came from Kingdom Come. And that dynamic, again, is Superman and Wonder Woman, the mother and father. Batman is the uncle, godfather. And when you try to, it's mostly an ending story. It is not a concept that is actually something that can have a story with it too much that can be fleshed out because of their different dynamics that it's a little superficial um as them as friends, you know. um you have Batman and Superman with the world's finest, which we saw in New 52. You had the Batman and Superman book. You have
It was a
Clark and
dope
Diana.
book.
Yeah, you have Clark and Diana with power couple. That is their dynamic. But Batman and Wonder Woman do not have a dynamic that works. Um, DC, AU, JLU, sorry, no, it doesn't work that way. So, yeah, the Trinity is just not a concept that you can truly elevate. And so with New 52, what they tried to do was make Wonder Woman appeal to more a male audience. But at the same time, you have to understand Perez made Wonder Woman, that is the golden standard. And male readers read Perez, you know, and that was the top book for DC at that time. So for you to really just make her this dark character, I didn't agree with. But after a while, he did, have Diana as who she was supposed to be as a compassionate character. The Amazons that told again, we've already discussed this of trying to bring realism, quote unquote, of the mythology, but that doesn't work for the DC Amazons because they are, again, they are victims of um, assault and being reincarnated because of abuse and everything like that. I just don't see them going out and doing that to men.
I know, even though it's mythologically accurate, I was like, that's the one part of the new 52 Wonder Woman lore that I didn't like at all. I mean, I tolerated the Zeus origin because I got what they were going for. And I understand it's mythologically accurate. However, it doesn't work for because these are a very specific type of Amazons, a very specific characterization of Amazons. And you can't, you to a degree, you can't really flip it in that direction. So really, it's like, not really a fan. So then we get to another part that we liked about the new 52, and that was Superman was essentially, and Brit, you brought this up pretty well. It's modern Golden Age.
Yeah. I mean, it's straight up with the first thing he does is basically call corrupted businessmen rats. That is the best line you can have. He isn't trying to be their friend. He isn't trying to shake their hands, make compromises or anything like post-crisis would do, give them a slap on the wrist or whatever. He was dangling a corrupted businessman off a ledge, you know. Regardless, though, as a hero, as the champion of the people, champion of the oppressed, this is what you do. This is how you show your stance of if these people can hurt, people they feel that are below them, if you have somebody that can be the hero, just in history, you know, um, how people did you can say the civil rights movements, um these people who have stood up and fought for the rights of people. This is who Superman is. And for you to take that away and to have this argument or to say that's not the real Superman, he wouldn't um hurt a corrupted businessman. Like,
That's what
really?
Superman did in the Gold. Because I read Action Comics 1. He straight up did that. So I'm like, if anything, post Crisis isn't Superman. Did I just shatter their worldview?
Right.
Because it makes a good point when you think about it, because when you look at Superman's actual like Golden Age roots, they're saying it's fundamental to the character. Let's go to when the actual character's created. Oh yeah, it's New 52 Superman, literally.
Yeah, all it is again, you're modernizing the character. You're taking away the red underpants. The S shield is different. You are giving him you're emphasizing more of the Kryptonian roots. And that's another thing, is that post-crisis fans, if you dare give Krypton, you know, it's flowers in a sense, you are deemed as like a non-Superman fan. You just like you do not understand the character. You are again thinking of being above humanity and everything like that. And that is the one thing that even with my Adventures of Superman,
Oh god,
that whole
that
thing.
crapshoot.
The Lois actress on she had it, interview question, and they asked her what her favorite episode was. And she said it was the episode where Lois, saved Clark from from a planet. And it's kind of like, okay, that was his home planet. It wasn't like it was some type of dystopian and turning Krypton into a dystopian and making them the Kryptonians tyrants, especially Laura and Jor-El. They were not tyrants. They, with Cal being the unique Kryptonian, out of 1,000 years or whatever, he was the first, natural born. And which I think New 52 changed that to be where Krypton was this place that, you know, embraced culture, and it also gave Laura more of a role of her being not only a scientist that's equal to Jor-El, but she was also an army general. And
That
but
was so
what Right,
badass.
but what Jurgens did, and how we see her even in my adventures. I think she was just hanging off of Jarrell's shoulder. You don't know who she is. She's just like this mute housewife. She's just like the sad mother, but it's just making Superman's story just a father, story. And she was just an incubator, or she had no real role for Cal. But with New 52, Cal, he was on Krypton, I think, when he was 3. So he had some memories of Laura, and they made it more of not only just the son of Jor-El, but also gave a son and a mother and son story too. And that's really what I loved also about New 52, is that both Clark and Diana had a story with their mothers, and emphasized on that motherly love.
Yeah, and by the way, Atchison brings up an interesting point that he would love a mini-series focusing on Jor-El and Lara. That would be dope.
DC tried to do that, but again, it seems like they are so hell-bent on making Krypton just like this. It's basically like, for it to be explode, it deserved. Like, they are these evil aliens that only humans, can tame. And that is what my adventures is showing, is that Kara, she has her own, story, but she's leashed, to Jimmy. And then Clark is shackled to Lois, for them as two aliens or whatever. And if they were, you bring in Kara also as like this
super weapon.
Yeah, this super weapon, and she was a villain too, but she called Jimmy Temptation, and the only reason why she became nice was because she's with Jimmy.
That whole relationship is the stupidest part of that show.
I really just don't like how, again, this whole thing of, if you are different than humans, especially Americans, you are deemed as evil. So with that,
well, then again, let's not forget John Byrne is the dude that called immigrants that wanted to preserve some of their culture ungrateful. So really, are we really surprised? No.
Right.
So
and then
yeah, go ahead.
And then we have where people are like, well, New 52 Superman, if he was with Lois, he wouldn't have died. And again,
what?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the conditions that combined to make him die had nothing to do with even Wonder Woman.
Well, Jurgens made it, about the relationship.
Well, it's Jurgens, and that man is one of the overrated Superman writers.
Yeah, so basically everything that New 52 Superman was, those post-crisis fans, or the Superman fans who are gatekeepers or whatever, they loved everything about him. It was just the fact that he wasn't with Lois. That's it. And it's kind of like, that's really, honestly, New 52 Superman, because he wasn't with Lois, is why he was how he was. Because again, it emphasized more on the fact that he honored both being a Kryptonian and honoring being a human, and in a certain aspect, he was able to merge it together, but he didn't have to pick one side over the other. Diana taught him, in a sense, to have that balance, that you can be Clark Kent still. She wanted to understand, why are you hiding yourself though? Again, she comes from a culture that celebrates who you are, celebrates your true identity. So why are you here feeling ashamed of your identity? But once she understood that it's not so much as being ashamed, it's just out of protectiveness of the people around you and yourself, of wanting privacy. There's a total difference of, it's not hiding out of shame, it's just hiding, and it's not even hiding, it's just wanting privacy. So
Yeah.
once that's established, and then again, him honoring and giving respect to Krypton and merging all of that together, he can be the greatest hero. But they feel like Superman isn't the poster boy for these American values to um, go with these traditional ways, then he's not Superman, which again is totally
Very
off
problematic.
base.
But
Yes.
Cameron, by the way, first off, Daniel brings up a good point, and then I'll get to Cameron. One thing that I missed from the New 52 Superman is that Clark never introduced Diana to his parents. That's the other thing that I really hated about Hippolyta being turned to stone, because Diana never got to introduce Clark to her mother and say, "Yeah, men are not all a-holes. Look at this dude."
Well, with this, I would say yes, that would definitely be something because, again, with going with the Zeus origin, but it doesn't necessarily have to just be that. It's the fact of the general um, look that the Amazons have of men, and men with power, men of power. That Clark is a man with power and a man of power in a sense too. But he is like the kindest, most respectful, honorable man there is. And he rivals Zeus in power and everything, but he is so loyal to Diana. He respects her. He loves her. He's her best friend. And again, going back to the post-crisis uh part, even though it was more on the Wonder Woman side, it's the fact that during our Worlds at War, Clark said to Hippolyta, Diana is his best friend. And you can tell that little, just by that panel alone, and for Hippolyta to say, well, that's my daughter, you can see that that is story potential there of sort of a clash or something of Hippolyta having to learn or, accept that Clark is who he presents himself to be, which is someone, again, who is loyal and honorable, even though he is a powerful, guy that can rival Zeus. He is not Zeus. So that is
Exactly.
a lot of story potential there to show the Amazons as just, too, that there can be change within, the outside world.
Yeah, exactly. And then Cameron asks, in your and Brit's opinion, why did writers start making Kara a villain for Clark? It's called making Kryptonians essentially, and Terry brings up a good point, Viltrumites. It's essentially
Yeah,
that. They want to make Kryptonians conquerors, and she's the super family member that remembers her Kryptonian heritage. It's really that. And it's
yeah,
quite frankly very offensive. So going to Wonder Woman, she got respect for once. And here's the thing. Here's the thing with the Superman and Wonder Woman book, because people were concerned that like it would call it that if Superman and Wonder Woman are together, it leads to her just becoming Superman's girlfriend. But again, the time they did that, that didn't happen.
right. And it's so crazy to see people like, oh, because of the book, or they have not read it, but they say, oh, she is reduced to his girlfriend with the new 52. It's like, again, you have not read a damn thing. Like, why are you having these opinions and you admit that you haven't read anything,
And
or you're
even
going off
in
base?
not just in the Sewell book, in the Superman and Wonder Woman books, when they reference the relationship, it's more like, "Oh, hey, Diana, what's up?" I remember this. There's this great image where Superman is like making dinner for Diana, and then she's like, I have to go. I have to go fight a Hydra." And then he kisses her, and she goes, "What Hydra?"
Right. It's those little things right there where you can have these little crossovers. I mean, Azzarello, he didn't want any references to the broader DC
Which was my one
within.
problem with the Azzarello run.
Yeah, it wasn't just the relationship. First of all, he wanted to put Diana with Orion, which
No,
Orion
no.
depicted the way he depicted Orion, he was a sexist jerk and he called Diana legs. He was just
That's kind
horrible.
of who Orion is. So I mean, he is the son of Darkseid, and that's
Right.
kind of a red flag when you think about
Right.
it.
So and again, and as we've talked about it, I cannot stand the fact that some writers or even fans want to sexualize Diana's um healing nature. Just because she is redeeming a villain or whatever like that, that
Oh
doesn't mean she has to
God.
have
You
a
mean the
romantic
cheetah
relationship.
thing? You mean the cheetah
That
thing? She can date, she can heal this person without
without
dating
dating
them.
them.
It's
Yeah,
real. It's like the same thing of like people saying, well, she could be with Batman because she could like rehabilitate him. She could even rehabilitate Gotham City. And here's my refutation of that. Batman is best friends with Superman. If there was any hope for redeeming Gotham based upon who Batman associates with, should be
it would be
Superman.
Superman. Exactly. Exactly. Right. I mean, they have a book together, World's Finest, and Superman, even if he isn't, I don't even think it's set really in Gotham. Most of the um most of the adventures or whatever is in Metropolis
Because
because
if
they
Superman
don't
ever
want,
showed up in Metropolis, problem solved. It's all over.
I mean, yeah, Gotham. The, the Batman editorial does not want supers in Gotham. That is why Nightwing is not with Starfire, because they don't want, you know, any supers within the Bat family.
Because
So
it makes and because here's the thing, it makes Batman's family look very ineffective because they're like, you mean we don't actually need you, we could just call the Justice League anytime Gotham is taken over by like Bane, Scarecrow, or the Joker. Problem solved, we're done.
exactly. But Batman can be in other people's business, basically, which
Mhm.
is, a double standard. But
But
uh,
this is DC and they worship Batman. But the point
right,
is here, Wonder Woman got a massive emphasis in the new 52. Granted, I'm not going to sit here and say that everything they did with her in this era was good. Brit and I started off this show talk about some reputations. But the very least, and this has been a big criticism that Brit and I, and even Jid and I have had about Wonder Woman's treatment by DC. They do not treat her like a member of the Trinity. They treat her as a member of the Trinity in name only, but they don't emphasize her. Where in this era, she actually got some tender love and care. And again, I mean, let me put it this way, Brit. Here's where you and I disagree. I kind see, except for the Wolverine clause, I like this suit.
yeah. I mean, it's a little busy because I don't like the shoulder pads either, because she looks like a linebacker still. However, if they want her to be, I wouldn't even say modest, because again,
I
it's
got
such,
an idea, Brett.
of course you did. um, it's a fine line again, because Wonder Woman is supposed to represent, you know, female empowerment. You are supposed to feel free,
Mhm.
and
But
she is
and here's the other interesting thing. Greek heroes are not covered that much when you look at like Achilles
exactly
and Hector. Honestly, when you look at the heroes of Greek myth, like Perseus, he's dressed like Wonder Woman pretty much.
right. And so we're trying to cover her up, because even with the 2016, the UN, stripping
Oh
her
yeah.
of that, and saying basically because of her bathing suit. It's kind of like women
She's a
have
warrior, and that's what makes her be able to move. It's like same thing with Catwoman wearing a very skin tight suit.
right. Well, a Catwoman is supposed to be like a cat, so her flexibility and everything like that works.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder Woman, again, she represents freedom. She represents this a free spirit.
Embracing her
So
body. And
yeah,
yeah, the reason why they put her in that red suit, and this is coming from David Finch, because I knew he designed it. So I was meeting with him for like to get stuff signed. So I was like, oh, screw it, I'll ask about this. And I also got my trade of that of that part covered, of that arc. So I asked him what was like the impetus behind the suit, and he goes, basically because they wanted to cover her up.
and that is something that, again, you are taken away from the
And
character.
they even said the fans threw such a shit fit, bleep. The fans threw such a fit that they ended it after one arc. other books used it, but the point is that it didn't show up in the Wonder Woman books.
Yeah. I mean, it's still sugar honey iced tea. But, you know, I mean, the the fans, I would say that they were right on this part because uh, again, you're trying to do too much, and it seemed like also DC has a problem with going the extreme. They can't find the right balance of things. There's no balance between Wonder Woman's outfits for sure because covering her up is just no. I don't agree with that. She can have pants at some point, but uh, no, I don't agree because again, I'm all about Wonder Woman being a free spirit.
And
The
to be
bathing
clear,
suit,
I also like the I like this suit. And to be clear, the bathing suit works in comics, not live action.
yes, let's clarify that. The bathing suit can be for comics and, toys, cartoons, things like that. But live action, as long as the actress is comfortable, I would now the actress can have on pants. The actress can or another battle skirt,
They're
but
probably gonna keep the battle skirt like forever. They're gonna put her in armor and a battle suit because A, with Wonder Woman being a Greek warrior, they wear armor. Second off, here's why the bathing suit will never happen. If you put a person in a bathing suit and make it look just like Wonder Woman's suit, certain parts of her body in the chest region are going to be seen through the suit. It's the same reason why you can't make the super suits as skin tight. I mean, Snyder succeeded, but you can't have them be totally skin tight because in comics, they draw out a lot of the
right.
specific organs or like parts of the body that would be realistically showing through.
I mean, for you to have the bathing suit and for that not to be shown, you have to pretty much have padding in certain areas.
And that's
Um,
not going to look good. That's the thing.
yeah, I mean, well, you don't. So in concerts, of course, in the costumes of course, my favorite,
Oh, there you go.
Beyonce.
There's our weekly Beyonce reference.
Exactly, we have to have it. She wears, the bodysuits, and you really can't see anything because it is a certain layer of padding, and that looks good, you know. Um, and also, I think pretty much they will probably have Diana in a turtleneck like the new 52 animated movies.
Or
But
this.
yeah, so I mean, you can make the bathing suit. We'll call it a bodysuit. Actually, you can make the bodysuit work if
But
you
based
do it
upon the
like
corn
that.
sweat Superman suit, it's not going to look good.
Yes, if you want it to be quote unquote comic accurate with with the more comic-y, cartoony, vibrant type, yeah, definitely that whole thing wouldn't work.
Yeah,
You
the
would,
other thing, here's why the Wonder Woman, some Wonder Woman fans don't like the armor because they don't like the warrior side of Diana, even though that's part of her heritage. In the same way that like Superman fans don't like the Kryptonian side, Wonder Woman fans don't like the warrior side, even though the Amazons are warriors. I get the whole I get the whole piece, the whole, but that warrior is part of it. If she's really that much of a peace person as they think she is, why is she a superhero fighting crime?
well, again, this is something that within the story me and Jid are working on. Diana's warrior of, okay, first of all, her line is warrior of peace.
Mm-hmm.
And it is basically like the correct way of a social justice warrior. You don't see them actually punching people. They fight with their words and their philanthropy, or just things like that. And Diana being the UN ambassador, or being a professor or something like that. That is what, in essentially, her title as a warrior of peace is. Um, but with emphasizing the warrior part specifically, Diana is not the punch first, axe later type thing.
Yeah.
She is, and that is what the lasso is for. You know, she does want to talk to you first, and then she'll punch you out if you
If she's not satisfied with your answer. But
right.
that's my thing. They treat it like she is all peace and never warrior. And I'm like, no, that's legit wrong.
No, yeah, there are some instances where it's kind of like, yeah, Diana, you need to put, your boot as far up, the backside if necessary.
Yeah, and it's like it's like the way I always thought of it is Diana's going to use diplomacy as much as she can, but at a certain point she's going to go, the diplomat is done. I tried the diplomatic route and the diplomat failed. Now it's time for the warrior to take over.
I got that reference. Yeah. That's basically it. And
And by the
honestly,
way,
that
I
is
have
the right.
another idea.
I know you do. Um, so that is how you balance out the warrior of peace. And also, even with Tom King calling her a contradiction, I don't agree with that
She's
either.
not a contradiction, dude.
She's not.
This coming from a CIA analyst is very, very interesting. Very interesting. But anyway, let's move on. So then we get one of the coolest parts of the new 52 is the costumes, because it's like Aquaman's a good example of this. It actually looks like chainmail armor, like a knight.
Yeah, in the scales,
Yeah.
like with Aquaman, he had like the way the costumes. It again, what DC wanted was new toys,
Mm-hmm.
t-shirts, that different apparel, costumes, actual Halloween costumes or Six Flags costumes, and you don't want to walk around in underwear, red underwear.
Yeah, you're not going to do that. You're never going to walk around with your underwear on the outside. I guess Circus Strongmen. You notice how outside of Circus Strongmen, no one does that anymore?
Right. I mean, even honestly, the wrestlers and everything, they wear pants. You
Or
hardly see.
Or when they do the trunks, they're not wearing anything else.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're gonna have Superman wear the trunks, I guess he can't wear anything else.
Which I don't think I don't think Wonder Woman would complain if he just showed up in just the trunks.
True.
Just
I
saying.
mean, he does, with the sun and everything, being basically powered like he's a plant or something.
Mm-hmm.
Having no clothes and just the underwear, it's fine. Again, because he's absorbing sunlight anyway. So yeah, that works. But of course, DC aren't going to do that, and they will sexualize it like they did the
Oh God.
World suit. So maybe we don't want that too much, but it's just an idea, maybe for us to implement in our story.
Exactly. We'll definitely be implementing that. But it's like I also put Power Ring up here because it's like, so they did Forever Evil. The Crime Syndicate took over, and the way they did the Crime Syndicate Green Lantern is the ring itself is sentient, and it's like inhabited by the spirit of a being called Volthoom that basically puppets people around like their corpses, essentially. And he gets on the ring of someone named Jessica Cruz. It's the origin of Jessica Cruz. This is another thing people forgot. A lot of great characters were started in this era, but regardless, so she became Power Ring. And the cool part about this is that it looks like she's wearing like a jacket or something like that. And I really like the way that some characters got armor, some didn't. Some got jackets, or like in Wonder Woman, remember the marketing originally had her in pants, but then again, the fans freaked out and they're like, nope, don't put her in pants. I think the pants one is actually still a statue though that you can get. If I remember correctly. So those are the costumes. This next slide is another thing that I'm very happy about. Speaking of Aquaman, he wasn't a joke anymore. Because he and I love the Jeff Johns run because they talk about how everyone thinks of him as the joke. I love the very first time you see Aquaman in his book, he's stopping a bank robbery, and then the bank robbers go, "Don't worry, it's just Aquaman."
It's like, oh, afterwards, it's like, oh no, we do have something to worry about.
And then even with Mira, I love how like a cop goes to the lighthouse to talk to Aquaman. And he goes, "Aren't you a mermaid?"
I mean,
I love it.
the jokes work, but at the same time, you're showing that Aquaman is definitely not a joke. And also it emphasizes his relationship on with Mira as well and made her an equal too. A lot of New 52 relationships, you know, and we'll go to that, but they really emphasized on actual power couples.
Yeah, and
And
I was about to say that because it seemed to me like the Aquaman book was basically the SuperWonder book, but in the ocean.
right. And that is the thing. All of this that was actually good within New 52. It's totally glossed over because of nagging fans who wanted post crisis and what they wanted. But again, post crisis was in such the gutter, and we are right back into that gutter with you got what you wanted, but you don't support it. You just wanted to have your way. So now Aquaman doesn't have a book at all. He hasn't had a book
I know.
in what, like 2, 3 years now?
Since
Because
Kelly Sue DeConnick came in, and guess who brought her into DC? I'll
yeah,
give you a
I
hint. He
know.
ruined Superman.
Yeah, and all they did was they married off Aquaman and he had Andy. Even Andy, his daughter, I mean, she's like still a toddler, I'm guessing.
My question is, remember when they were like, okay, so we wanted Wonder Woman, we wanted Wonder Woman to have a kid because it would be cool. It's like someone to babysit for John to babysit. You literally have Aquaman's kid.
That is because, again, they wanted the concept of the Trinity, though.
Plus,
Again, it's just a promotional thing.
Brit, here's the dirty little secret. Tom King does not get royalties for Aquaman's kid. That's why.
Yeah, because he wasn't the creator, but I mean, with
Mm-hmm.
Trinity, and what's so crazy is that with calling her Trinity, you automatically think of the Trinity, which is pretty awful. But also,
You could have called
um,
her. I have a perfect name. Are you ready? Olympia.
yeah, don't give them any ideas.
No, but my point is that way you point in that direction, but you make it so when you think of Wonder Woman's daughter, you could think of Olympia. By the way, we're using that. By the way, just wanted to say
Yeah,
that right there.
yeah. Um, but also, and I think I said this to either Jid or in one of the group chats, but I said that notice that the Super Sons and Lizzie, even her name Lizzie Marston Prince is just kind of like, first of all, where did Marston come from? I understand I understand the metatextual sense of it, but in story like the fictional, where did that come from? That is just so on the nose. And then Prince. Diana in New 52, she had the secret identity, but
She didn't really
with the
emphasize
rebirth,
it that much.
yeah, but with rebirth, she and I think in the Justice League book, her name was just Diana the Mascara. So
Mm-hmm.
naming her Elizabeth and also Elizabeth, it just did. Diana would not name her child Lizzie or Elizabeth.
It'd
You know,
probably be like an Amazonian name or like even after Hippolyta.
yeah, it would be more unique and
Oh,
exotic or something.
Atchison has a good point. He'd actually name Wonder Woman's daughter Suprema. Ah,
Exactly, the
that's a
original
fantastic
story.
idea.
Right. But that also goes back to kind of like connecting her to Superman. That's why they stopped. But
Well,
yeah,
the other thing, according to that Marston movie, is that he was like, that's too long of a name. Just shorten it because originally it was Suprema the Wonder Woman.
right. Um, but also, yeah, what I said in the group chat, I think, is that the Super Sons and Lizzie is basically Warner Brothers, the Animaniacs, and Dot, Wacko, and
It's basically that, and I'm
it's
like,
basically them.
it's like the
And
corgi storyline, and I'm like, this is so boring. It's gotten to the
yeah,
point where when I'm reading through the Wonder Woman book and I get to the backups, I just close the book. I'm done. I really don't care.
right. Yeah, it is so off base, and it's really like if you wanted this, you should have just had it like a
Elseworlds.
digital first or an Elseworld. And honestly, Tom King, he should have advocated for this to be Elseworld, not bring her
Oh.
into main continuity.
I got a
When
big idea.
how many ideas is this?
3.
Anybody in the chat? Yeah.
Oh, this one you're gonna love. I'll tell you when we unrecord.
Okay. But yeah, just that whole thing is his idea for Trinity. It's not based on Wonder Woman. So even with having Andy, and they had the future state where they wanted Yara and John and Andy and other characters to be the future Justice League. Andy is still a baby. So how in the world can,
That
unless you
doesn't
have
line
her
up with
age?
the age, unless like they significantly, unless like they stay, unless like time really slows down. That's not gonna work.
Yeah, so even with Andy still being a toddler, and you can say in a Superman book or Batman book, only like 6 months has passed. But within the Aquaman book, you know, Mira, she carried Andy for 9 months and then she's like a year or two old. So in the Aquaman book, before it got canceled, 2 years had passed. But in other books, it was only like 6 months. So, just that whole time scale is so off base. And again, you are going with post crisis, and this is what, messing up everything, and why you had to have a clean slate in the first place. And then for you to have this, everything is canon too. It's
Oh,
also,
that I think is what really screwed DC in terms of like the modern era when they said we're not gonna deal with continuity, you guys handle it, and I'm like, that is the stupidest idea ever, particularly with like Wonder Woman where she has multiple origins. Which one?
yeah.
But that's a discussion for another stream. Next one. Now we're gonna get to our favorite new 52 books. Now, what I did here, I was gonna have a separate section for me and Brit, but practically all of the books,
All of us.
short of like a couple of them, Brit and I share. So what I did is I just interspersed them. So first off is the one that's pretty obvious for Brit and mine's favorite: Superman and Wonder Woman.
Right.
Really?
And specifically we had to put volumes 1 and 2 because
Yeah.
volume 3 and 5
Tomasi.
is Sugar Honey Iced Tea. And so
I love Brit when she's trying to not curse. She comes up with the greatest non-curses.
yeah, I have to catch myself. So I had to think of, okay, what can go with this? But yeah, Charles, he did an incredible job with, you know, this relationship did not need to be sold. Like it I can't uh, understand why. I do understand why, but I don't, of why people had to be like convinced that this relationship is important or that they can have a romance, because again, their relationship has started since pre-crisis. It with the teases here and there, it wasn't something full on, but at the same time, it was something that was established with them being as friends. And then you can have a relationship. It started out also in Elseworlds as a staple of Clark and Diana being in a relationship, even in, Kingdom Come, having kids and possibly married, you know. So to be convinced that this is a relationship worthy to explore, it was unexpected, um, for and naysayers, but as fans and knowing even general fans, they automatically naturally think Superman and Wonder Woman are already married or together. So we're seeing this story, and again, emphasizing on these two powerful immigrants, refugee, um, coming together to protect the world is a better, compelling story than just the hero and the civilian and the hero playing, you know, a captain of saving the damsel in distress.
And in fact,
Um,
Atchison brings up a good point. He asked, why self-sabotage something that was working and selling? Because here's why. They were jealous that Superman and Wonder Woman being a couple was selling. And that's really what it
exactly.
was, jealousy. Because, again, post-crisis, a part of it is that it got boring real fast. Now, what I will say, going to Superman and Wonder Woman, the cool part about this is, and this is the one congratulatory thing I will give Volume 3 at least, because what Superman and Wonder Woman did is that a part of the series, Wonder Woman was brought into Superman's world, and then in Volume 3, jeez, Wonder Woman was brought. I mean, Superman was brought into Wonder Woman's world with like fighting Cersei. Why would they be jealous? Because like the lowest thing wasn't selling for Superman anymore, so they're like, oh gosh, why is this selling? Particularly with like Tomasi and Jurgens and all those people. But
Right,
Brit, yeah, go ahead.
you had where Superman and Wonder Woman Volume 1, the first issue, it sold over 100K. You know,
And they didn't expect it to sell that well. I get the
yeah,
feeling they did it as a gimmick, like, okay, we'll put them together, see how much that sells. Oh my God.
yeah. And you have where, um, again, you have the apparel, you have the the bags and all of these different things, the
Merch that they
partnerships.
still make, by
Yeah,
the way.
right. You have all this stuff with this couple, and again, Lois and Steve are just regular people. They are not. You can't have them on merch.
Oh, by the way,
It's just random
DC,
people.
can you please reissue that damn statue? Because I want that statue. Please reissue the Stick and Kiss statue. There was a
Not
scene in
only
the
that
Big Bang,
statue.
Brit. There was a scene in the Big Bang Theory when like one of the guys goes to like the comic book store to get a gift for their friend. They go, I need a good wedding gift. Then they hold up the Superman and Wonder Woman statue, and I'm like, I want that so bad.
Exactly. The statue really shows of an equal romance. With any other statue, especially with Superman and Lois, he's carrying her. It's the damsel thing. In real life, no woman truly wants to be the damsel. It's not about that. It's about equality. So, and you want to feel like a Wonder Woman. I can't. Who would want to, uh, feel like a Lois Lane? Like, no.
Because you're constantly being saved. With Wonder Woman, it's like, yeah, sometimes he saves her, sometimes she saves him.
Right. It's an equal balance. So again, with this book, it really exceeded expectations, and you see the um the worth, of this relationship and what it means that you can have them as best friends with romantic tension, or you can have a full-on relationship. And they couldn't find a way to break them up. And what they thought was, with bringing Post Crisis back, that the book that they had with Jurians was going to, and I remember on CBR, the forum, they were so confident that it was going to sell like hotcakes. And they were, and then for the debut of it to go, I think it was
30,000
just
for the
30,000.
book that supposedly the majority of fans wanted. Where when you have, again, Superman and Wonder Woman debuted 100,000 compared to 30,000, and it's not like 30,000. It would be one thing if it started off at 30,000 and then like shot up. It never won. I don't think it ever rose above 30K, and I'm like,
No, it
that
never
is
did.
abysmal.
Right, it never did. It ended at 18K, and then of course with the sabotage of Tomasi, the Superman and Wonder Woman, like the fans were it. it basically um was like, okay, we have to keep this book going. And it stalled pretty much, but it was dropping, especially with knowing that New 52 Superman was going to die. But it did get some reprints, and the last issue was 28K. So it basically it wasn't even at cancellation numbers, but you have the Superman and Lois book at 18K. That is straight up cancellation. So for you to choose the book or the status quo that couldn't even reach 30K and kept dropping and sabotage the relationship that worked and that actually
And that actually
proven
sold
itself.
and was getting good reviews. So literally, you screwed yourself twice. It's
Right.
it's the biggest asinine thing I've ever seen. Next book. Now, Britt, I've never read this one, so you're gonna have to explain this to me. Sensational Comics.
Okay, so with this is basically out of continuity, like different stories.
Okay.
But the Wonder Woman didn't have. It was another book that I didn't. Hopefully, you have this on the list too. But if you don't, I'll bring it up later. Um, it Wonder Woman didn't have many books though. Like you have Superman in Action Comics, you have Batman in
Ah,
Detective
okay.
Comics, but you had the Wonder Woman book, but no Sensation Comics. So this is a digital first, and again, it's just like an anthology of different writers, artists, and the stories. It was really fun. Some of them were kind of forgettable, but it was some stories that really, okay, this is how a Wonder Woman book is supposed to be, and honestly, how Action Comics and Detective Comics should be. It should be pretty much an anthology. And yeah, so I liked having that alternative
Or
for Wonder Woman.
or stories that feature other members of their individual families, because the way I would do
Right,
all of those other books is that Superman is obviously Clark. The other one, Action Comics, deals with either the people of Metropolis occasionally, or Kara, Connor, and all those other guys. Detective would be
right,
the family, or Gordon, or like Montoya and all those characters. Sensation would be the Wonder Girl book.
exactly. And even with the Tom King, knowing that Wonder Woman only has one book, I, for
And
the
she's a
life
member of
of
the
me,
Trinity. First off, let's emphasize that really
right,
really hard
again,
there.
yeah, Wonder, they can say that. Okay, so with New 52, it was a lot of pros and cons, but I would say that it did elevate Wonder Woman to where this is why, honestly, the 2017 movie was greenlit
Hmm.
because her character again was given elevation. And so this is pretty much why she ended up with Sensation Comics too. But again, you gave her a digital first because you still felt like she couldn't have an actual, printed book. Um, and that's the same thing they did with the animation, with an animated show, was they pitched the show first of all uh in the 40s. Like let it go. Wonder Woman does not have to be 100 years old um in World War II. I
Or she can be from that, but can we stop having Wonder Woman stories take place in the past and actually have her interacting with the DC universe? Because again,
right.
that's the real reason why I want a Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman 3, because I want to see her in, because that's a modern day story as opposed to the past two, even though Wonder Woman 2 should have taken place in the modern day.
Yeah, and also just emphasizing on Steve and again I've
Mm.
explained this that the only reason why they want to keep um Wonder Woman set in the past is a period piece and stuck within the military is for Steve because he is mostly within the military and it, it's in this day today's time, with everything that's going around in the world, the military like the government, is very problematic right now. So we don't want
To a
to
certain
glorify
degree.
that. Yeah.
I mean,
So,
look this way: you can glorify military service, but acting like it's like the most perfect thing in the world is a bad idea.
and
Which
that's
is
the
what.
thing.
And here's the thing: they have a good like story idea with Steve not being with Diana, but still, particularly when Diana was the god, and then you have her boyfriend as a soldier. So, but they never dealt with that again, and the reason I bring that up is because it's the idea that like the story potential was there, but they didn't do it. But I see what you're saying there, particularly with Wonder Woman being an agent for peace, but then she's dating someone who his job is the complete opposite.
Right.
Ignore the opposites attract thing because that is total BS.
Yes, it is. So, and also the whole opposites attract, they also is very superficial of the superpowered with the mortal anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not really, so a lot of times it's not really delving into the opposites, but also even their opposites, they don't really have much in common either. It, so
Or
even
it's like the opposites attracting works to a certain degree. It's just here's why it doesn't work with like Wonder Bat, and it certainly doesn't work with Steve because because opposites do attract, except when the thing that makes the people opposite is the thing that is like fundamental to the individual, like Diana being an agent of peace and being an agent of truth. Then you have Batman, who's like his whole thing is lies, or Steve Trevor, where his whole job is war. That doesn't work.
yeah, and you
Oh,
have and
Cameron brings up a good point. I'm sorry I keep bringing this up, but she's a princess to his prince. She doesn't care about being a princess.
you're right. Diana does not care about royalties. If she did, she would still be, on Themyscira. And also, in a relationship, you have to have things in common. Like there has to be a common ground to, you know, that emphasizes more on your understanding of each other. Being the opposites, that's not coming to an understanding because you are changing yourself for that person for that comfort, or you are, really showing the differences will split you apart. So just again, that whole thing of the um the relationships are, DC needs to do better with Wonder Woman overall, and for her not to have another book, um, even the absolute thing, the way it's described,
The
I
witch thing is the part that's really like sticking with me, where I'm like, I don't know how I feel. At least you explained the tattoo, but still, I'm like,
I mean, what I expected was honestly what they did mostly. Like when you think of absolute, you really think of what they wanted was like the ultimate universe of Marvel. But the
mhm.
thing is, from what I see, Marvel is basically like taking everything and yeah, they change up a little bit, but the characters are basically at their core the same.
Yeah,
And
in this, it's like no,
but
which
this you were doing
hmm?
with this you were doing the total opposite and like taking things away from them. Like you are stripping them of everything. And supposedly they do have their same core or whatever, but with Scott Snyder's Batman, he said that basically Batman is Miller's Batman, but a little bit like harsher.
harsher,
Uh,
harsher than that Batman.
Yeah,
The Batman that lit people on fire and then had sex with Black Canary.
yeah, he's like, and
He's harsher than the goddamn Batman. Is that what? Did he really say that?
he said, let me look up the
Oh
tweet,
god damn it! Oh my
and
gosh!
he
But
says,
the problem with Batman on that is because I also don't like the cape how it wraps around him. It looks weird, but it's I'm just like harsher than that, Batman.
Hold on.
Oh my God, I've never heard anyone say that. That's
Okay,
quite a declaration right there.
let's
No, yeah,
see.
Tevye, I agree. All-Star Batman and Robin was bad, but oh my gosh, harsher?
Okay, so it's one tweet that says, or someone asked him about um he his Batman rides between inspiration and intimidation. Where does absolute Batman Bruce find himself in the line when we meet him? And he said both. He's bigger and badder. Bruce in the main you is order. He holds things together against the chaos of his villains. Absolute is chaos. Is he's like a force of nature that refuses to believe that we uh can't do better. And where is it? He said something about Miller's Batman. Hold on. Um, he said someone asks about how cool is Absolute going to be. He said he's smart, he's resourceful, and he's more brutal. He's young, angry, and the most violent Batman. Like DKR muscles on a wild kid.
Oh God, that is like, oh my gosh, sounds like Scott Snyder, but still. But anyway, continuing on, our another favorite book. This one I definitely read. If this thing will move, Action Comics. Hell yeah! I'm so
Yes.
again because it was the champion of the oppressed. I like how they. I like the T-shirt and jeans because here's in the context of that story, it felt to me like he had to earn the Superman suit.
With that, yeah, I would say that in his earlier years, you especially with being, I think he started 21, 22.
Mm-hmm.
So being that it he also emphasized the everyday man.
Yeah.
So when he's like just starting out with the people earning, yeah, earning the people trust, then yeah, he and meets the Justice League, then yeah, he transitions to having the Kryptonian suit, which works. That is how things supposed to go. With with the suit, how people said that with wearing the collar, it means that he's authoritative or that he isn't approachable. Again, this is in black and white within Justice League 14, I believe 14. But he says that he doesn't wear a mask for that very reason, that he wants people to see his face so
Mm-hmm.
they can trust him.
Yeah, it's
So,
that.
yeah, so with him wearing the t-shirt and jeans and having the S shield on the t-shirt and the cape, if people trusted him just with that. And now he's transitioning to the suit. It doesn't matter whether he doesn't have whether he has a collar or not, or whether he has the trunks. I mean, with James Gunn, he just adapted the Fortnite suit, which again, it looks just as silly as
He
it looks.
butchered the new Fit 52 suit. I'm going to tell you right there, he butchered it.
Which, as silly as the Fortnite suit looks with the trunks added on top of the new 52 suit, yeah, it looks just like that, and it looks silly. And
Except except at least the Fortnite suit fits Superman.
I would say that his suit, it just looks like he wants to really emphasize on the old-fashioned way, but he has everyone
Well, the
else
big
seem
galoot.
like, yeah. So,
I could hear the pain in Brit's voice as she said, "Yeah."
yeah, I'm not at all um agreeance with the whole galoot thing because Clark
That's from the
Superman
era of
have,
DC that tanked the company. So, are you
yeah,
sure you want to really homage that?
yeah, he is supposed to be smart. I mean, he is the son of two scientists. If
And a freaking military general, one of them.
and you have him. There was a tweet saying that Superman is relatable because he has a regular IQ. And it's basically like, so an
No,
alien,
he doesn't.
that has, again, two, he's an alien and his parents are scientists. He would rather have a regular IQ. Yeah, no, that doesn't make any sense. So with Action Comics, you see there is a story where he reads, a book fast to, I think Lois, of course, got injured or whatever, and he had to do surgery. So he reads the book pretty fast and able to operate. Things like that to show again, Superman is relatable in a sense of, and he really doesn't supposed to be relatable in that sense of he's for the everyday man, but he isn't the everyday man. And his being relatable means, again, emphasizing on the immigrant story and being the outsider trying to navigate through life and understanding your purpose. You're not trying to fit in, because fitting in means, again, changing yourself or hiding part of yourself. It's just more so like how he said in Throne of Atlantis, the animated movie, was blending in. You're
Mhm.
blending all the unique cultures together to continue on. So again, that's what I think Action Comics really
It did.
succeeded with. But also another thing was, I guess it's trying to bend over backwards and gaslight themselves is to that Grant Morrison. He um they uh had, I guess this was an illusion that he was married to Lois or something, but basically it was just this whole thing. And the fans, of course, on Twitter, they gaslit themselves of thinking, oh, Grant Morrison um, he was setting up that eventually he would be married to Lois again.
Nope, wasn't.
Yeah,
I read
it's
it.
right. It's like, no, that and that she was the end game, is that, you know, um, basically just wanting New to Superman to transition back into post crisis. Again, you are limiting creativity,
But
and
here's the thing, Britt. Even if Grant wanted to do that, here's why they could not. Are you ready? The Superman book. Because here's the thing: the Action Comics book takes place 5 years in the past, like around the time Superman's first starting. Superman takes place in the modern day. He ain't with Lois. So even if that's what Grant wanted, they could not put Superman with Lois because he wasn't in the 5 year later book.
right,
So obviously it's not the end game. In fact, he was with Wonder Woman in the end game book.
right, it's basically, and again, this is why fans again don't read, because for you to think that it's all just mapped out. And that is also the problem, is that DC wants to like have futures set within ongoings, within again creative writing. That is not how creative writing works,
Or
because I can have,
it's like, remember Future State, and all of a sudden they were like, oh yeah, Infinite Frontier is kind of leading to Future State.
yeah, and it didn't work out. Again, with the stories that we are writing, we have we have these setups, but you can have these ideas and you can have
Outline.
an outline, but in order to get to it, things change. Things, as we've done, we had these ideas, but at the same time it has changed. It has, okay, well, we need to rewrite this to be a better scene, or maybe we need to take this out,
Or here's where we can have the same effect, but do it in a better way.
exactly, or or a
Here's how
scene,
we don't come across as petty.
right, or here's a scene, but it's actually gearing towards another direction. And with all the stories that I have written, that has been a thing for me, is that I have this outline, and whether it is inspiration from from a song, or from you, from Jid, from any other fan, of giving suggestions or something like that, the story has changed and evolved, and it doesn't go exactly in that direction that I first thought of, that I first thought of. And sometimes it's like that's the better way to go. I just let the story basically tell its tell its own self, because if you limit yourself to just that set idea, again, you are limiting the creation, and you aren't really putting the idea and the potential of it, you know, uh, you're not letting it flourish, and you're not putting it all out there. So with any story, you want it to be something that actually speaks more, um, than what you first thought of. So
And by the way, real quick, I want to bring up, because Quentin Hale brought up something. Superman being Apollo was the best scene. Yes, it was.
yes,
Yes, it was. Next book, Aquaman. Hell yes. And here's the thing. Here's why it's good that we talked about this after Superman. Aquaman is kind of telling the same story of a guy that except this time it's technically, here's the thing about Aquaman. He's Superman in reverse, in that he's a guy that he's well, actually not really. He was raised human, then discovered he has this other heritage that is important to him, except unlike Superman, he most of the time embraces his heritage. At first he
exactly.
could reject it. And then his girlfriend, his Wonder Woman, was originally sent to kill him.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much the only differences, but the fact that Aquaman has better balance of his life, and understanding his purpose, because he has Mira. And Mira, even though she was sent to kill him, she still helped him embrace his otherness. And that is what is missing from Clark. And Diana is the one that could help him embrace his otherness, instead of, just compromising, and the whole I just think of myself as human, and rejecting who you really are, and your, sole purpose. If Superman wasn't supposed to be Superman in Action Comics, and all of that, the books will, instead of Superman, it would be Clark Kent, and it would be emphasizing on the reporter in the Daily Planet. Action Comics would probably be called Daily Planet Comics or something, and Superman would be called Clark Kent, but it's not. It's Action Comics, which is action. You need, the fighting, the you know, galactical type stuff, and then Superman is more of the city, but please get out of Metropolis. I cannot stand that Superman he's supposed to be a global hero, but only stuck in Metropolis. Like, they need to broaden just,
That's why the Warworld saga was so good, because he left Metropolis.
yeah. I mean, he left Earth. He needs to leave Earth more often. Um, Unless he's with Diana, then he can take her with him, you know. But other than that, yeah. If you're not going to, I guess, with the journalism and Clark being a reporter, first of all, they don't address the unethical, history of him and Lois, that he gives her stories, and the conflict of interest that she write. Not only does he write stories on himself, but Lois also writes stories on him, and
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 part of the reason why she got the Pulitzer is for the story about Superman. So I'm like, that doesn't sit well. I
right,
believe there's such a thing as journalistic integrity. I know it's something very foreign to someone like Lois.
right. So, um, you know, if you don't want to, I guess, explore that whole conflict, then honestly, just let go of the journalism because honestly, even with making Lois the editor in chief, that only happened for like I don't know a an issue, and then now they're trying to give her powers. So it doesn't work. The Daily Planet is a relic in itself too, and Superman needs to be a global hero and a global
Yeah,
correspondent.
because no one reads newspapers anymore. I got news for you. They don't.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then we get to my very first comic book series that I ever read, Justice League, the New 52. Oh my gosh, was this perfect. The first introduction to them. I love Green Lantern and Batman's back and forth. Like where he goes, okay, so do you fly? No. Super strength? No. Wait, you're not just some dude in a bat suit, are you? Then I love where Batman swiped Green Lantern's ring and goes, what's this do? And then Green Lantern's like calls the ring back and he goes, you won't do that again. And then Batman's like, unless I want to.
And it's the fact that they are so young and
That
like
is so good.
they
That is such to a T what dudes that age act like.
and for some fans to argue some of it did go a little bit overboard. You did want to have more women on the Justice League though. Like you could have had Black Canary, you could have had Vixen.
But again,
Dynamic
they're going back to the classic era where here's the thing: all these people, short of Cyborg, were on the Justice League for like a while. In fact, the first iteration of the Justice League, Wonder Woman was the only woman.
true, but again, it's
I
that's
get what
true.
you're saying.
What
I like personally. I always thought that for our Justice League Brit, it was that lineup that had like Vixen, Hawkgirl, and like Black Canary and all that. That's why. That's personally how when I always write the league. That's more or less the ones that I put on there. Occasionally, I'll add in other people for fun, like Star Sapphire. DC stole my idea, and again, or like any of the other like leaguers. But yeah, I definitely feel like. And by the way, Tevia, Scott Snyder's Justice League was not Rebirth. They abandoned that before Scott Snyder got. Arguably, they abandoned that with Metal. But the point is, yeah, because I don't know about you, Britt, about because I don't know if we've really had this conversation before about the Shelterverse, but the Justice League, the way I always saw it was that Brad Meltzer lineup for the most part.
yeah, that lineup was, and I think Mark Wade, it seemed like that is for the new Justice League book that's coming out, is the lineup that, you know, um, is going to be set. It's just you need an equal amount of women and men and diversity. You need that um, because again, that is what New 52 really was supposed to uh, emphasize on diversity, and for you to just have one woman token and then Cyborg, it it just seemed like it didn't give the emphasis on what New 52 was about. While we did like the dynamics, it just felt like something was missing. And but with the Moltzer, I would say that going back to that Justice League lineup would be for the best. And that was pretty much where you had, I would say, the best stories too. You
Oh yeah,
know,
that Justice League era was god tier, like ridiculously good. You also had some good Super Wonder moments, like when Liberty Bell is saying, "So Wonder Woman, have you ever thought of dating Superman? He's not available." And it's kind of funny. Jordan tweeted this today. He put, "She didn't say no."
oh, I saw that. Yes,
It's
it's
true. She didn't say no, or like I'm not interested in Clark that way. She just said he's not available. Eh?
which basically was like, well, if he
Well,
was
and Brit,
available,
according to Michael Conrad, that's what's called being subtle.
yeah. I mean, again, that is how it's been since post-crisis era, and you know, before, was we had these ambiguous, references, and New 52 just made it official. Um, but again, with this Justice League, um, it was supposed to be like a big event book, like, and it did. It had
It did.
very
It had some
much,
pretty cool ones.
yeah, and for it really showed the Justice League being like the set book, and everything else that comes out of uh everything within the Justice League and the events, it really spawns and actually affects these solo books, except for Wonder Woman, because again,
Well,
as
again,
of Rolo,
yeah, good old boy Azzy was like, no, she's not connected to DC in any way. And I'm like, continuing on, spoiler alert, Batman, even though he didn't get a reboot. But the Bat book was pretty good with like the Court of Owls, and like a lot of the storylines in this series were really good.
yeah, I mean, Scott Snyder, he is a Batman fanboy through and through. I mean, he the absolute line pretty much is based on Batman,
Except
and
he's like a fan of linebacker, of like super linebacker who takes steroids, Batman.
right, he wants uh his Miller Batman, basically. He
Mm-hmm.
wants his name as um as big as Miller, which more power to him, of course. But I would say that his stories, um he basically did the plot armor and did a little bit of Bat God. When he created like the lasso he got from the black market. I think, was it the in game
Mm-hmm.
storyline? And I would say he wanted to also implement horror. So I
Oh
don't
yeah.
know, but it was the
Well, this was also the one where the Joker cut his own face off and somehow did not get an infection.
that, and Mr. Bloom,
Oh,
that
I think I remember that.
that you had Gordon Bat. And then you had where Bruce had amnesia, and he was with I think her name was Julia. Uh,
I forget.
let me see.
But
Batman love interest.
the cool part about this is that is that again you had like they revisited Batman's origin 0 year, which was not bad. Then you had like the Court of Owls was like the big story that started all this, and it was Scott Snyder's like really coming into his own as a Batman writer. But then you had like Jim Gordon becoming Batman, and I was like, I'm not a big fan of this.
Yeah, and her name was Julie Madison.
Okay, I
Um,
think is she a redhead? Because I think I'm picturing her.
yeah, she's a
Yeah,
redhead.
I know who that is. I think she also has tattoos on her arm. I think I know who this
Yes,
is.
yes, yeah. So you had that, which again, New 52 was modern day pre-crisis. Basically, it was the golden age of and putting these characters back at their actual basics. Again, the back to basics to post crisis fans is just their post crisis era. That is not the basics of these characters. It is pre crisis. Um, but again, with the double standards, the hypocritical mindset of the post crisis fans, and I don't mean to be down on post crisis fans. As I said, some post crisis uh, stories are very good. Some fans are civilized. However, the fans that are like the rotten apples have soured just the tolerance of certain errors with, you know, with just the entitlement. And again, post crisis is why DC is in such a bad shape as it was in 2010 and now right back in the present time.
Oh, it was kind of funny. Bringing back post crisis tanked the company again. Gasp if two very knowledgeable YouTubers had been warning about this for so long. Oh, but then we get to Batman Superman. So tell me about this one, because I also did not read this one, even though I want to.
Okay, so honestly, I was kind of confused with the timeline and kind of the back and forth, but I think that Bruce and Clark, they like met as kids at some point.
Yes, at some point
And
they did, and they played on that in post crisis as well.
yeah, so I think they were trying to put them as like childhood friends too. And you know, from then on, just that more of a brother type, you know, relationship they had instead of um the kind of frenemies type thing or Batman is better than Superman. They really just emphasized on Bruce and Clark being brothers and understanding, basically being orphans too. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Clark didn't have the Kents. His parents died just as well, and they died in a car accident. Bruce, you know, his parents died in the alley, but it's still the fact that they could, you know, understand each other with that whole tragedy. And it just really showed that this is how Bruce and Clark should be written, you know, as brothers, brothers in arms, as understanding, instead of the whole um Batman can beat up Superman, you know, if he has prep time in
Thanks,
kryptonite.
Frank Miller.
I mean, honestly, that was if Frank Miller's whole thing with Superman was a response to Burn. So it's pretty much everything bad that happens to Superman is Burn's fault.
Oh, really? You mean Superman make out with a 14-year-old? Oh, boy. I know it's kind of funny. I bring that up a lot because when that panel went viral on Twitter, a lot of people said he does this with a lot of characters. So that's why I'm like, if it's one, it's a lapse in judgment. If it's two, I start to get suspicious. If it's three, we need to see your search history.
Yeah.
But
And
really, it's...
and
Yeah, go ahead.
and really, you know, with the Sandman creator, Neil.
Neil
Yeah,
Gaiman?
yeah, that he's the one that kind of got caught with his whole thing. So yeah, maybe it is time to do some search histories on some of these creatives because
Exactly.
they're really implementing a lot of their um I I don't know how to call it, but yeah, it's just very
Problematic
weird.
people. So, these next two books are mine. So, as you guys know, I have been recommending that DC do this for a while. They did this in the New 52. It was one trade. Men at War. So what this is, Brit, have you heard of the characters like Sergeant Rock and Easy Company?
I have heard of Sergeant Rock, yes.
So they were a World War II team that did like war comics. In it's essentially they took Sergeant Rock, had his like grandson is like in the army, and they drop into this country in the Middle East. It looks like a straight up war movie. Then all of a sudden, so they land, they approach their target, they are torn apart by a superhero. I mean, a metahuman. It turns out the terrorists had gotten their hands on like a machine or like a serum, I forget which one, that turns people, that gives people superpowers, essentially Compound V. So they then have to fight this terrorist organization and superheroes, metahumans. So again, what this shows, and this is why when I read this book, I was like, this is why DC should do this, where it's essentially war books, like modern war comics about like soldiers in Afghanistan. However, how does that work in a world with like Superman, the Justice League?
That's pretty interesting.
It's an
Okay, so maybe
incredible concept.
I probably need to give that a read. And just like that, pretty much, the deal, he said that with New 52, they wanted these different genres and these
Yeah.
different settings for, to implement some of the realism, like with Wonder Woman, doesn't work well. But with other characters, it works. And again, in today's time, we don't want to glorify, in a sense, the military. But in the case that you have explained it, a book like this works. And, you know, you also had the idea of like Steve and Rick Flag.
Make them easy company with Sergeant Rock and have them do this, but in a world with superheroes, because that changes how you deploy a military team if you could just call the Justice League.
Right. So how you explore that dynamic is what the New 52 was pretty much trying to do, is put these characters in a realistic sort of world, but at this and just marry realism with the fantastical and just basically see how it goes. And if it creates drama and the interesting drama, it
Yeah.
and works out, it works out. And it did work
They
out.
emphasize like realism in terms of like how the characters talk in the military, what guns they use, what like you use. So I was very surprised with how much they stuck to attention to detail on this. So it feels like you're watching a war movie, which is the way this stuff should be.
Yeah, and even the reaction of heroes, period. With Superman, you have the government taking him and torturing him.
They torture him. This is one thing we forgot to mention in Action Comics. Humans torture Superman. He still protects them.
Right. But he doesn't want to be one.
No.
He doesn't bow down.
And he doesn't trust them.
Right. That is the natural reaction of, you see a dude flying or whatever, you are going to have that certain fear. And he does have to earn that trust and to know that he will be your protector. But that doesn't mean that in order for us to trust him, because honestly, with how they did the Drowned, for how Superman, he saved Lois, but everyone else, it was kind of like, he didn't care for. Yeah, I don't trust Superman if he's romantically linked to Lois.
If he leaves you behind because he has to go save Lois, yeah, that's stupid. Now, Brit, what's the one book that I always put in when we talk about great books? What's the one book?
Lantern.
Ding, 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 ding. Green Lantern. And yes, I know they didn't like reboot it. So here's the cool story here. So at the very last post-crisis issue of Green Lantern, so the Guardians, so there's this big like battle, and the Guardians essentially so Hal loses like his ring. The ring, a Green Lantern ring, gets on chooses Sinestro to rejoin the Green Lanterns. Sinestro. And everyone's like, what the hell? And then to top it all off, the Guardians revoke Hal's status as a Green Lantern. So that's where he's starting. And the first arc was like called Sinestro's Mind, Sinestro being a Green Lantern. But at the same time, Hal is grappling with life not as a superhero. In fact, there's this great thing where like he's buying a new apartment. He looks across the way and sees like what he thinks is someone like beating up a woman, but it's actually people filming a movie. So he like jumps through the window, and they're like, and the director's like, God damn it, cut. So at the same time, he decides, I'm not a Green Lantern anymore. Carol. So he goes and talks to Carol, and it was kind of funny. At first, he royally screws up the thing. Like he's having dinner with her, and he goes, Carol, there's something I really want to ask you. She thinks he's proposing. He's actually asking, can you co-sign on my car? Wow. And she throws her drink in his face, walks away saying, I can't believe I thought that you were. And then Hal's like, oh, wait, you thought I was. So then Sinestro comes to Jordan and says, okay, I need you to come with me. So he clones his ring and gives it to Hal and says, okay, so you can only be a Green Lantern as long as I allow it. It's essentially he has control over Hal's ring. You help me with this, I'll give you the ring. So Hal is like, okay, fine. So they fly off because they're trying to find Black Hand, because after Blackest Night, he was taken by the Indigo Tribe. The Indigo Tribe is like the Purple Lanterns started by Ab and Sur. It's a lot. I'm trying to factor this down for someone that doesn't read Green Lantern. But it's like essentially he's the one that like started Blackest Night. So the same time, so Hal and Sinestro are captured by the Indigo Tribe, and it looks like they're gonna die. And so Hal has enough energy for one more construct. He could bring up a hand and like bash his way out of the ring. The last thing he wanted to see was Carol. And he goes, Carol, I'm sorry I couldn't come home. And the ring runs out of battery power. He's saved, and then he shows back up, finds Carol, first off just kisses her, and goes, look, let me talk for a second. He says, listen, I'm not a good person. I get it. I screw this up routinely. But I got to tell you this. I was going to die, and I only had enough power for one construct, and I could only think of you. You are the only thing I've ever thought about. I love you. Will you give me another chance? And then Carol has a fantastic response. She goes, technically, this would be your 10th chance. So they get back together. And again, it's Hal adjusting to not being a lantern anymore. And then Sinestro shows up again and is like, he even like puts a Green Lantern gun to Carol's head and says, come with me or she dies. And obviously Hal beats his ass. But the funny part is like, Carol is like, okay, I'm coming. She puts on her ring and goes after them, but they vanish at the same time. So then you have, the Guardians lose faith in the Green Lanterns. So they start like their own thing, which I believe was like, I forget exactly what it was. I think it was called like Final Lanterns or something like that. And it was basically drones. Like, and essentially what would happen is that they have this one prime drone, which looks creepy as hell, and it would like infect people. And then essentially what they decided is that if we take away everyone's free will, the world, we won't need a police force anymore. Oh yeah, Lost Army. Thank you, Tevia. At the same time, Simon Baz got his ring for the first time. And it's just Simon Baz is one of the guys, and they actually use him to like examine post 9/11 American politics because he was put in Gitmo for no reason. They thought he was a terrorist. He wasn't. And he's been dealing with that. The thing about him is that he's a street racer and kind of jacks cars, but he's trying to get a job as well. So he gets a ring and starts doing stuff. The Justice League show up and they go, hey, listen, dude, just calm down. We just want to talk. And then Simon like escapes. So that's what's going on at the same time. Cruz hasn't gotten a ring yet because she's in Justice League. So with the Hal storyline, he fights the First Army and the Lost Army. He defeats the Lost Army essentially. And then a Necron from Blackest Night shows up again. And Hal, to fight him, puts on a Black Lantern ring and becomes a Black Lantern, essentially a zombie. And they fight. And then Hal is guided back by the memory of his father. And the father says, no, son, live. And then as soon as he lives and he gets and I think it was like, it It was Kyle, because Kyle became a White Lantern, which is the entity of life. I know this is really confusing, Brit. I know it was a lot. There's like 3 omnibuy there, but
Wow.
yeah, essentially, and I've read all of them cover to cover because I'm a huge Green Lantern nerd. But so he brings Hal back to life, and as soon as he gets brought back to life, the Green Ring finally chooses Hal and goes, "You are worthy of being a Green Lantern." It basically says, "Hal Jordan, you have the ability to overcome great fear. You have been chosen. Welcome to the Green Lantern." And he goes, "All right, Necron, let's do this." Then he fights Necron, and then Sinestro gets a yellow ring again, and then it's like everyone goes their separate ways. Then the last issue, which is one of the best ways to end Jeff Johns' Green Lantern epic. It's one of the most fantastic Green Lantern issues. It starts off in the distant future, and new Green Lanterns are being deputized. But this one recruit goes to essentially the historian of the Lanterns and says, "Tell me again the story of Hal Jordan." And it's like the whole story. And then he goes, "Tell me how it ends." So the thing is that they say, okay, Sinestro did this. John Stewart retired and became a senator. And actually, so John Stewart, part of his lore is at one point, he made a mistake that caused a planet to be destroyed. And one of the last inhabitants of that planet became a Star Sapphire and tried to kill him. But in this, they fell in love. And like they got married. Kyle became still became a White Lantern and would lead people to life. Hal married Carol, and their wedding rings are their lantern rings. And what's kind of cool is that as you see throughout it, they like have a kid, and then they grow old together and have grandkids. And then the final page, it all goes back to Hal Jordan getting that ring for the first time, and it says, "He was the spark that," and the last page is a double page spread of all of the Lantern Corps of this whole epic universe. And it basically said all of this started because Hal Jordan was given the ring. He was the spark that ignited this fire. And then the Green Lantern epic ends. And god damn it, did I cry at that last page.
Wow, that is a lot, but
It's a lot of lore, I know, but if you're
yeah.
if you're keeping up with it, it's so freaking good. And that ending, where again, Hal got a happy ending, and then just the way it is the Jeff Johns Green Lantern run. Cameron, just start with Green Lantern Rebirth from Post Crisis and go all the way through. You'll be good. And it's just the way they ended by circling back to the Hal Jordan getting that ring. Because when you think about it, everything that happened in Green Lantern, from the Sinestro Corps, from the Black Lantern rings, from the Red Lantern rings, everything is linked to Hal getting that ring. And just the way they harken back to it is one of the best ways to end a comic book run. Like, wow.
I mean, that is why
yeah. Mm-hmm.
that is why Green Lantern and Batman didn't need reboots. With Superman, I mean, you're trying to go back to pre-crisis, Golden Age, and you're trying to tell new stories that aren't creating limitations, but yet, even though we did get Super Doomed, which was different,
that should have been the death of Superman, and then just don't do the death. Because that's the way you retell that story, but do it in a new way. Don't kill him.
Right. You know, and having Clark and Diana's relationship. And one more thing, the other book that I didn't mention, because, well, there was a miniseries and kind of, was Hitch's JLA.
Yes. We did cover this on the show, though.
We did. And what really made that story was Diana bringing Clark back to life with the bolt.
That may or may not be something Brit and I use.
Right. That is the one part, and just the fact that she didn't give up, and it shows how powerful she is the fact that her love was powerful. But having to, accumulate
idea.
I know.
I need to write this
That's
down. This is a fantastic idea. Go on.
having this book be changed and the whole cancellation of Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman in this book. You know, it was supposed to have a different ending, but you have these off uh with JLA. Hitch, the book was canceled at issue 10, but it was supposed to go for two more issues, 11 and 12, or a whole new arc, which he ended up using for Justice League, which I think was the legacy uh, arc of bringing in Hunter. So I'm honestly, I know that Hitch says that, you know, Hunter wasn't supposed to be like their kid, but honest,
You implied that he was there. Why is he wearing Superman's gear
the
in the context
implication,
of the marketing?
yeah, the implication, and like I said, the marketing, and there was a a when they first showed the sketches of the designs, his name was Hunter Prince Kent or Hunter Kent. So
Yeah.
so, but that was modified to just say Hunter Prince. So I think that editorial, of course, at that time, are wanting, you know, to promote the status quo of Lois and Clark with John. So having Clark and Diana have a kid will overshadow that, and it really did. Hunter was like, "Oh my God, this is Clark and Diana's future kid. Where is he gonna
I
come
even
from?"
shared it on Facebook. I'm like, are they bringing this back?
And then when it was revealed of his origin,
Oh
just the
God.
interest just
Wonder
completely.
Woman was. They did the R. You know what's kind of funny? They did Mark Millar proud. They did the violation of Wonder Woman.
And it was so degrading. And it's kind of like you would rather have Wonder Woman assaulted than to respect her relationship with Clark. Or you didn't even have to put them together. Like, why is her son tied to Clark if you didn't want them to be together? Why can't
Or
you
if you didn't want
just,
people to think that,
or
because
to think
because
that,
until they really address that, like when you first see him with again the implication, like with Barry and Jessica's kid, I'm not sure how I feel about them being a couple, but the point is with those two people with Cyborg's just kid, I'm just like, yeah, you know who those are, and they're the biological kids. Um.
yeah, why did you have to make Hunter
Also,
just
why did
so,
Batman not have a kid? That's what I want to know.
because he already has Damien,
Oh, yeah, that's
and
true.
it's basically like Batman wouldn't have another kid within the Justice League. Like
Mhm.
he would, if anything, it would have been Helena. Um,
Oh, okay, I see.
yeah.
By the way, another new 52 book that I want to mention is Earth 2. And that was their attempt at an Ultimate Universe. Because here's the fun part. So, in that storyline, the first arc, Trinity dies, and Robin, aka Helena Wayne, and Supergirl go into a portal and we never see them for like a while in the series. Turns out they came to the main DC universe. That was New 52 Huntress and Power Girl. And then they
Oh, that's
eventually
right.
went back to the main DC universe. I mean to Earth 2, and that's when Power Girl got a Superman S from Clark and he said you earned this. Clark died but then came back but then died again. But before he died he says you've earned this. She puts the S on and she has a logo. It's not just a boob window.
Right. Who, of course, Tom Taylor ruined that book because first he turned Superman into Injustice, you know, that tyrant.
It wasn't always Tom Taylor.
And then was it Robinson?
Yeah, it was
He
Robinson started it, I think.
he did. I thought that that whole storyline was Tom Taylor. But and then it was Diana having a daughter with
Steppenwolf.
Steppenwolf.
I do not like
Yeah,
that. I'm sorry.
that is
No.
no.
Even if they make it where like, oh no, he was just disguised. Like she was either violated by Steppenwolf or was disguised. It still doesn't work, and I'm like,
Yeah,
and they make her Donna Troy.
yeah. They have this weird
Why
um
is Wonder Woman constantly being violated?
it feels like they have this weird fetish for that, and also it's kind of like it, also the respect that Diana has when she was with Clark. Again, she was treated as an equal because, you know, that is the goal, is for them to be equals. But when they want to diminish her relationships, it's kind of like it's like that shield that she gains is downplayed. And so kind of like the whatever leash some of these writers had on them, they let it go. So their fetish or what they really want to do with Wonder Woman is obviously very problematic, and they have
Or it's
just
like,
this
remember, Brit,
thing.
I sent you this tweet, this tweet that someone took a screenshot from the DC Discord where someone said they would like to see Wonder Woman get R-worded by a bunch of bank criminals because it's like a immortal goddess being R-worded by mortals.
Exactly, that's the same thing of, well, it's
Mm.
not the same thing, but it's why they have this weird idea of Wonder Bat. They think that, you know, Diana being a goddess, and again, she doesn't like being referenced as a goddess,
Or
even though
royalty in
she
any
is, or
way.
yeah. So the whole this goddess is infatuated with a mortal, you know, you have this human superiority type complex or whatever, and trying to have this macho feel of again this power fantasy, this male, you know, gazing fantasy of Wonder Woman, sexualizing her. And that is something that she was shielded from, at least, you know, somewhat within the New 52, especially, again, the whole promotion, the emphasis and the purpose of Clark and Diana's relationship was equality and respect. But once that relationship was diminished, it's kind of like the floodgates open to everything bad that some people think, you know, are are within Clark and Diana's relationship. No, this is actually happening within her relationships with other people, especially even with Steve. I mean, Rucka had her in a straitjacket, and her being, you know, codependent for a little bit on Steve when she had a mental breakdown. And she was gaslit, guilt tripped, and manipulated into thinking that it was bad for her to be with Clark and she wasn't with Steve. And then for Steve, that you brought up, the breakup of them, that he whined that she didn't give him enough time, you know. Um,
And by the way, we read this live on air. I think it was CLD or something like that. So it's not like I made that up. You can clearly see that stream.
yeah,
And it is the stupidest thing in the world. The stupidest reason for a Navy SEAL to complain about her not being home. I'm like, if anyone knows what that's like, it's you, a-hole.
right. So, you know, and it's all projection. So everything that they think Superman and Wonder Woman's relationship is just so awful with, which is not. It actually goes within other relationships, and you see that, but it's okay because Steve or Bruce or anyone else, um, or the whole thing of wanting Diana to be romantically linked with her villains, you know,
Oh,
that is
God.
okay because
I
they
hate the
are.
enemies to lovers trope. It's so stupid.
Yeah,
But
it's so.
anyway, speaking of criticism, by the way, so here's a criticism of the new 52, Brit. That throughout history or post-crisis. Oh, you mean the history that literally led to DC almost being shut down? That history, and that bringing it back led to DC going back to where it was pre-new 52. You mean that history?
Right. We and we've talked about this, or Sam Liu said that people are married to the era that they grew up in. So for some reason, again, post-crisis fans, they are really like aggressive with wanting it just has to be what they like, and that's it, that's all. Regardless of sales, regardless of anything, it's just what they
Yeah,
want.
I brought up it didn't sell well, and they have legit said, I don't care. Oh,
Yeah.
Dave brings up an excellent point. Steve Trevor was the actual woman in that relationship. That is great,
Well,
Dave. That is great.
he was. He did act like
And Tevia, it's called getting in new fans. If that history is being an impediment to people getting into comics, that's the problem. But anyway, so
exactly.
as you were going to say about Steve, Britt, I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, Steve, he whined. He was again very manipulative, sexist, gaslighter, just that whole thing, being very jealous, possessive. You know, it wasn't,
Stalker.
yeah, obsessive, stalker. It just wasn't a relationship to root for. And you really didn't know why Diana was with Steve. It was just because of defaulting to he is the love interest, just like with Lois.
Even though he wasn't in the pre-New 52
Right.
era. The
Um,
post-crisis era that everyone seems to love.
yeah. The reason why Steve is a love interest now is only because of
The
the
movies.
movies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
it's really just that. And with the movies, basically, 2017 movie, it gave Wonder Woman a little bit of popularity because you saw a woman that she was independent, but a lot of people saw they saw Chris Pine more than actual Steve Trevor as a
Mm-hmm.
character. So Chris Pine basically sold just himself really, and being, having that charisma and everything like that. That's all people see. But when you actually read Steve, he is a bore. He does not actually do anything for Diana. And he is much better as the big brother father figure type character for her. So with the 2017 movie, you have her just in love with this guy that she only knew for like less than a week. He dies. She gives up on humanity, you know, hides out for 100 years or whatever. Then she comes back apparently within 60 years of that 100, in 84, and basically body snatchers and R words a dude that she didn't
Who's
know.
possibly LGBTQ.
Yeah, and you know, and so that just really ruined the just that whole thing. If you wanted someone to care for that relationship, you know, Clark and Diana, they are put into very problematic situations for to basically make Lois and Steve seem important. Whether you have Diana having a mental breakdown or she's hallucinating of of Steve, or she's even Tom King, she's eating a rat or something and
Two
having
rats,
herself,
matter of fact.
yeah, having herself locked up in the, I understand the whole thing of saying that like the wherever she was, it took away her powers or whatever. That's so contrived. But her thoughts will be with her mother and her sisters. It wouldn't be with Steve. And even with trying to force this idea that he's like this one true love, Tom King basically did not show that at all. He showed these different scenarios of Diana complaining that she's locked up, and Steve, he wasn't really helpful. He was just like what she conjured up, and she's talking to herself, you know. So it's basically
Or
like
it's
it's
like,
just
in that case, it's even worse because Diana's talked about the good times she had making out with Steve while they were tracking terrorists.
yeah. I mean, Diana would not if that was Clark and Diana stopping to make out while Doomsday is on
Darkseid
a
was
rampage.
invading, or
Yeah,
Doomsday, yeah.
then, they would like basically damn the ship to hell, you know. But with Steve, but because it was Steve, and of course being immortal and everything like that, they some fans were okay with that. Um, but yeah, so going with Clark and Lois, you have Clark sacrificing innocent people to take Lois all the way to the fortress, or you have him turning into a tyrant, a murderous tyrant because she died. You know, things like that. How exactly is that grounding them, even though they don't need to be grounded? How is that grounding them? How is that keeping them connected to humanity when New 52 showed that Clark and Diana are very much linked to humanity when you read volume one, and they would rather go out dancing, at a club or something, than, you know, really just and more social than fighting Zod or whatever. But at least they do the work first and then go out,
Yeah, the
and
world
have
comes
fun.
first. As in the case, and this is payback, Brit, as in the case of In Crisis on Infinite Earths when she sacrificed herself to restart the multiverse. Ha! Next one. The
Yeah.
relationships weren't the same. Yeah, because they weren't selling, and Dan DiDio basically said that.
Yeah, I mean, even when he left DC, he basically said that it, you can tell what he meant because he said there was some implements of within Rebirth that we brought back that it made you question why we brought it back in the first place. And it was like, the thing that Rebirth brought back was the relationship with Lois and Clark. So it's kind of like he wasn't being very subtle at all. So it's kind of like, yeah, even when the Dio was leaving DC, he questioned why bring that relationship back. And yes, he wanted, and I showed you
That's
this.
kind of funny coming from the guy that led the effort to bring it back. So I'm like, I get your complaining, but dude, you of all people could have said no, we're not bringing it back. We're not doing
Yeah,
that.
because
You and Jim Lee were the supposed co-publishers. Reportedly, Jim Lee doesn't really pay attention in meetings, so you had the control.
yeah, and how it started was, of course, with DCEU and this,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to the whole synergy thing of like Diana being with Steve, so Superman has to be with Lois again. And with Snyder wanting them to get married, and also the death of Superman, it was a toss between Frank Miller and Jurgens. With Miller, it was because most of Snyder, uh, he was influenced by Millerverse, and
Mm-hmm.
then but he also did Death of Superman. So because Miller wanted his and that's pretty much why we got like Dark Knight Returns 3 and also the Golden Child. But he didn't want to put that within main continuity. He wanted to keep everything separate, which is kind of like, darn it, Miller, if you wanted, you should have taken that opportunity because we could have had Laura and Jonathan in main continuity. But Jurgens, he, took that opportunity, had the clout or whatever to and manipulated the DO in selling the idea of John. And John was supposed to be DC's Miles Morales. And that is basically what the DO was looking for, was like this new, younger, even younger Superman, teenage Superman. And
Mm-hmm.
with that, we see John is not that. He doesn't really have a story. You don't need a younger Superman. Superman is Superman. Um, and and honestly, you had Connor for that if you wanted a younger Superman. But they ruined Connor. Jurgens, he didn't want Connor to be anywhere near while they were trying to force John. Also, John is basically a plot device to not only bring the marriage back, but try to give Lois, a set role as the love interest and to close off anything else. Um, but at the same time, what they were going to do was Lois was going to be sidelined. Like how they started Rebirth of her just being like a glorified housewife baking pies. That's all she was going to do. And then she was going to disappear and it was just going to be Clark and John. And I think they were probably going to kill her off for the DL's 5G um, idea, which was to turn Clark into a tyrant, even in main continuity, and have John and Damien, they wanted them to be like Magneto and Charles Xavier. So
Hmm.
yeah, the deal basically he wanted to turn DC into Marvel, X-Men, Spider-Man, or something like that. He because of and you've talked about this too. Marvel has its issues, but at the same time, they even their issues doesn't amount to the fact that DC just can't grasp a new audience. So that is what they want. They want that Marvel audience. And so the deal taking basically the wrong ideas and trying to implement them. And then you had who shall not be named bring in
Thank you.
Marvel, you're welcome, Marvel writers, and they are within DC now, and you see how
They have royally screwed up DC because
screwed
I'm
up
sorry,
DC.
it works for what works for Marvel doesn't work for DC. And we're
DC,
seeing that with the Superman movie because it's all people from the MCU and look at what we're getting. Crap.
yeah,
So continuing, everyone was younger. Okay, but then you get the crowd that sees them as just your grandfather. Actually, it's kind of funny, and they brought this up in the DC documentary. God damn, I love that documentary. It brings up they made them younger, partly because that then you could say these were your daddy's superheroes.
that, and again, we are supposed to, for a new generation, post crisis was able to grow up with a certain iteration. So the new 52 was that generation was supposed to grow up with their iteration of the character. Now it's kind of like that wasn't very fair because we only got 5 to 6 years of this iteration, and now you have where some new 52 fans stayed around, whatever, but most of them left, and now you're stuck with just you don't have the older fans and you don't have newer fans. You're just kind of like stuck in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, these are the characters that when we were invested within the New 52, we wanted to see them grow. It wasn't to turn them into post crisis because it's kind of, again, why would you put them back into a place that made you want to reboot in the first place? But they were to grow and see where, the story took them. And again, you could have done that with Clark and Diana's relationship. Yeah, you could have had a breakup, but at the same time, they could work it out. And the reason why they had the breakup, which I think you've said, like, it was trying to frame them as like star-crossed lovers in a sense of because the world or the government was scared of them being together, it was like they decided to, again, the world comes first thing. They decided,
But they had a story potential there because they could have eventually led to the reconciliation where Superman says, "Yeah, but there are some things that I don't want to share with the world, and you're one of them."
yeah. So if they had to break up, I would have rather it be something like them like putting their relationship on hold until they are able to I guess, again, have that, I would say, affirmation, I think, to for the world to trust them together. Like they are not only as individuals, but as, that partnership. Because it seemed like, again, that fear of these powerful foreigners being together, you know, the government is after them.
And that's
So,
called xenophobia.
yeah. So you wanted that to settle down in a sense. So I get that storyline. Don't have it where like Jurgens basically was like, no, this is not supposed to be, and you have Booster Gold erased. Like his connection to New 52 and Clark and Diana's relationship, that, just that whole mean spirited type thing because it wasn't what came before or it wasn't what you preferred. No, that doesn't work like that. If a relationship works, and if it can, bring in new readers, then let it be what it is. But to have in story where it's like it's doom and gloom and the world isn't the same. Well, no, sugar honey iced tea, it's not the same.
I love
But
that.
it it still is something new, and it's something that's supposed to be good. These are two heroes. You can have Aquaman and Mira together. You can have Mr. Miracle and Big Barda together. You can have the Lanterns together. You can have Batman and Catwoman, as toxic as they are, together. You can have, on the Marvel side, Gambit and Rogue, Black Panther and Storm. Um, even though it's a love triangle square thing, but Wolverine and Storm, Wolverine and Jean, Scott and Emma, Scott and Jean, you know, all of these, Sue and Reed, Fantastic Four, all of these superpowered relationships show that they can work,
And
that they
they're like
have.
some of the most iconic relationships in comics.
And but yet you have a problem with Clark and Diana being together. Yes, there is the
Green
the
Lantern and Star
challenge.
Sapphire, technically, they kind
Yeah,
of count.
you have these two. They are two different franchises, but they are under the same umbrella of DC. You
Hmm.
already, outside of comics, you are already marketing them with merch. You are having them as the lovebirds, as the power couple. So why not in story honor that and have them together, even if it is an out of continuity book? You
I'd
can
be fine
still,
as long as I get a book. I don't care if it's in continuity.
yeah, you can have them together. And if everything matters and everything, happened or whatever they want to say, and continuity doesn't matter, you can have a book set just like World's Finest, where it's not, constricted to the present day or whatever. You can have it set then.
Yeah.
But
So
with showing Clark, real quick, with showing
yeah.
Clark and Diana and everyone else younger, again, we were supposed to grow up with them again. A new generation to invest in, to bring in new readers. But when you just cut it off at the kneecaps, you basically cut off your support and your investments.
Just because of some creatives that were acting like, honestly, they were acting like babies. So you wonder why they wanted Superman in essentially the diaper. Continuing on, the timeline was too short. This is one that I kind of agree, because here's the thing. If they had told me that everything you liked happened in like 10 years, I could have bought Batman having all these Robins in 10 years. 5 years is when they really stretched it. I'm like, whoa.
Right. Again, they didn't want to reboot Batman and Green Lantern because obviously Batman and Green
It
Lantern,
sells.
it worked. But at the same time, yeah, it did, that whole timeline still messed up. And the thing is, still, you can't just put it put it on New 52 because the timeline was screwed up within Post Crisis as well. So with the Robins, I mean, honestly, even now, Tim Drake and his generation, as much as um, Twitter is, whining and wanting these characters, they don't support the books that they are in. So Tim Drake's book, he had a book and it flopped. It completely flopped. Young Justice with He Who Shall Not Be Named, that flopped. Um, Connor, he is so, but his book pretty much flopped. Um, e- Even with going back to bringing in, like I said, the DCEU synergy and Jurgens and wanting John to be the Miles Morales of DC, even with his book, totally flopped. I mean, I think it did like 60K. So comparing Superman and Wonder Woman's book, a whole over 100K. So you have John's book, which is supposed to be like everyone loves John as the Superboy, as the new Superman, and he only did like 60K, between 60 and 70K. That's still 30 um 30K less than Superman and Wonder Woman's book. And then you go over to the Convergence book, which did significantly less
Mm-hmm.
of 60K, below Superman and Wonder Woman. So yeah, this whole timeline uh, with everyone, it doesn't work. And this is pretty much the only criticism that we all agree on. But you don't even care for these characters, so it really didn't even matter.
Yeah, exactly. So next, not properly rebooting Batman and Green Lantern, which here's the thing. They didn't do it because they were selling really well. That at least you were thinking of sales in one way. The problem with that, while I applaud DC for considering sales for once, it's the idea that you were doing a reboot for everyone, commit to the reboot.
Yeah,
Look this way: if you didn't want to reboot these two franchises, it's the same thing with what James Gunn is doing right now. If you don't want to
exactly.
reboot, if you don't want to fully reboot, don't reboot.
Yeah. I mean, and it's only confusing unless you are just solely like interested in one character, you are confusing your audience. Um, and again, the general audience or the casual fans, and I don't like it that self-proclaimed diehard comic fans, you know, um, belittle casual fans because even diehard fans, they don't support the books, you know, and they are the ones who mostly pirate the books too.
Yeah,
So again, the whole projection and double standard. So with casual fans, you want those casual fans to become the new generation, or you know of diehard fans that will support the books and actually buy the books. So for diehard fans, do not belittle casual fans because they are the ones that have the potential to help keep comic books going. But they don't care. But casual fans don't care for continuity. They aren't married to it. And that is what New 52 was about. It was about not being married to continuity. It was a fresh start, yes, but honestly, it didn't matter. It was just trying to make these characters um, fit within modern time. And Batman and Green Lantern, they just didn't need with what you explained for Green Lantern, he didn't need um you didn't really have to care for the timeline or anything like that. And then with Batman and the Robins, because of the Robins, that is the only reason why the timeline mattered.
Well, here's the thing with Green Lantern. Yeah, for the most part, because it takes place mostly in space, you have a point. But then when you get into like Sinestro Corps War and Blackest Night, which literally took place exclusively on Earth, that's where it gets to the problem where I'm like, wait. So you're telling me that Blackest Night happened, even though the characters that you needed in Blackest Night don't exist in this continuity? It doesn't work. Next, people hated this. Fans hated the Superman suit because they didn't like the collar for some reason, and they didn't like that he didn't have the trunks.
Yeah, Superman is not the Trunks. And for, for James Gunn to basically say, well, he wanted to basically do a whole blender of everything, of every era of Superman. You have the Kingdom Come S, which is because Kingdom Come is you know, the story of DC. You have the collar, which represents New 52, and the lines. You have the trunks, represents, yeah, all eras, but you didn't need them. You could have just did a belt or something like that. And the cape and everything like that. But he should not be defined by his costume. Like
Mhm.
you had him, he can be in nothing at all. He can be in jeans and tee, and he is still Superman. What matters is his work.
Oh, and by the way,
And
ambiguous gender brings up a point. I don't think it's the trunks the Die Hard are. Yes, they are, but it's just more just needing someone to break up the color. You had it, the red belt. He still has a belt. It's not like it's straight up, like straight down, just blue. You have the belt.
right, honestly, I just don't
I
care for,
the trunks just look stupid, honestly.
yeah, when you have other characters modernized like Diana with the bow skirt and how slick sometimes, artists draw, her armor, and then up against Superman, who looks like he is in a suit made by his mom. It just doesn't work sometimes. It really seems like he is old fashioned and old fogey, and it's just something that's just not working. Um,
Yeah,
then
exactly. So then what?
uh, with the Wonder Woman suit, again, we've already talked about that. That the bodysuit works only in comics and cartoons,
Even
but
in
live
here, they
action,
clearly went an armor route with it.
yeah, it seemed shiny. Everything seems very shiny, and again, they
Because
wanted,
it did look like armor, which I'm like, well, for Wonder Woman, wearing armor makes a lot of sense.
yeah, um, but they wanted to have where, again, the action figures and the statues and stuff like that. I mean, the new 52 statues, whether it's the Kiss statue or Solo, is they're so beautiful and stand out. Um,
And the thing is, with like Superman and Wonder Woman, particularly as a couple, their costumes look really good together. It's not like their colors like contrast or anything like that. They're similar enough that it looks like they go together, but they're different enough that Wonder Woman does not look like Superwoman.
what's so funny is that Clark and Diana matching colors in a sense is criticized, but you have Lois turning into Superwoman. First of all,
Literally in
her
the
name is
exact same
Superwoman.
suit.
Yeah, first of all, her name is Superwoman. So again, you're reducing her.
Derivative.
I don't, even though it is a golden age reference because she became Superwoman, it's still the fact that still reducing her to having the powers to be an equal to Superman.
Well, let me put it
Superman,
this way: if we're honoring the past, technically Lois Lane became a black woman. Should we all homage that?
yeah, see,
If you want to homage the past, you got to homage that too. See where this line of logic leads to?
right, so
By that
true.
logic, Superman has to make out with a 14-year-old girl. See where we have to homage the past. This all happened. This is a rich tapestry. Some stuff you should throw in the garbage.
Right. So you have her in the super suit, and the only thing she doesn't have are the trunks, but she basically looked like gender bent Clark. When they first announced this and showed the cover, so many people were saying, "Oh, she's gonna be like a daughter, or she's going to be a new cousin, or something like that."
A
So
new cousin.
people,
God damn it.
or a sister. So for people to randomly throw out that she was a daughter, a cousin, or a sister is like, yeah, they are the ones that look like siblings, and they are the ones that look the matching. In a
It's
sense,
literally the
doesn't
same
work.
costume. It's literally the same costume, and that's just. It looks like when He Who Must Not Be Named had Clark give Lois the costume, so he could explain why Clark got the trunks back. And it's like she wore the Rebirth Superman suit when she went gallivanting in space, but then came home and didn't see Clark for a month. Yeah, that's stupid. But anyway, moving on to our last point here, the last part, and this is something that's similar to the way DC fans treated Snyder. Oh my gosh, it was a failure and ruined DC forever. Both of those points are incorrect. And even the same thing with
Right.
Snyder. They say it ruined DC movies. No, it didn't. But anyway, continue, Brit.
So with this, New 52 was to save DC. And not only save DC, but save the industry as a whole. Because again, DC was in the gutter. And like again, for fans to not, they're so want having this entitlement. And it's like what I like works and is popular and it sells or whatever. No. You have to like take off the, rose colored glasses and look at look at things objectively and see that New 52 had to happen. Rebirth did not have to happen, but it was for DCEU synergy. Both were, I would say, WB ruined DCEU in a sense. Um, and then you have Rebirth ruining New 52, but it's all connected because it's all about wanting everything, putting all your eggs in one basket. And that is also the thing that pretty much James Gunn is doing as well, where it's only one iteration of Superman where I
He
think Corn
claims he's
Sweat.
homaging the past. Like, remember when he talks about the logo, where the only thing that's like hinting at our future is like the only thing that separates the new DC logo from the uh from the from the old version that's homaging is the color blue. And I'm like,
Yeah,
that's doing the future. That's no way does that point to the future. And they even said that, let me put it this way, they say it's about embracing the future, but the way they talked about the logo, the way Jim Lee talks about the logo, it's literally just for the past.
yeah, it is. They are very much going, and that is what was said in the documentary, is that DC is so hell bent on being stagnant, staying in the past. They do not know how to move forward. Even if they do take the step forward, they take 100 steps back. And the Dio, he said it too, that they are scared to take risks, that they are lazy. And this is why, again, Marvel at their lowest or at their
Here's
worst.
the thing. I know what you're going to say. Are you going to talk about how Marvel outsells DC?
I mean,
Because that's not entirely because of quality. That's mostly because
that's what I'm
Marvel
saying.
floods the market with books.
That's what I'm saying is that Marvel can be still at their lowest. They can still be very
Mm-hmm.
bad. And yeah, they do flood the market, but at the same time, their books still stay. Like they don't have like a massive drop like DC books do, or that their books don't. It all depends, but debut out of the top 50. It has to be one book that is really an unknown character, but even Marvel is able to have an unknown character be at the top 10 or top 20 outselling Superman. You know, your Superman book was, unless you have like a crap ton of variant covers, that book was out of the top 50.
Mm-hmm.
Even Mark Waid's Batman and Superman, World's Finest book, after he did the Kingdom Come, which is kind of funny because Mark Waid has an issue with Kingdom Come because of the criticism that he faces, mostly of Lois fans because she's irrelevant.
Well, you know why? You know why he feels the need to criticize it? Because he actually was not as behind Kingdom Come as people think he is. That was mostly Alex Ross.
Right. And so with that, he used the World's Finest to do his story of Thunder Boy or whatever his name was,
mm-hmm.
to become Magog. And he said that he was sitting on his story for about 25 years or whatever like that, and wanted to give him a proper origin. And it's like, okay, cool, whatever, but it really didn't, like, we don't care for, like, if you were going to return to Kingdom Come, show us Clark and Diana's son,
because we know they have a son, so
yeah, show him.
Technically they did care. Though let's not forget about that.
Yeah, show him or something. Show something actually. We just don't care for the origin of Magog. He's a villain. He ends up, becoming a villain. And basically, who Thunder Boy was, I think he had the same origin as Clark, but he ended up being like basically Clark's Jason Todd. Getting beat up by Joker, and that is how he becomes Magog, because Clark fails him, whatever. So yeah, he's basically Jason Todd.
But that makes no sense.
Yeah, that's really nothing creative behind that, but basically just with all of these different stories, and you're going back to, it's basically old house, new paint, but it's no proper rebuilds, no proper repairs. You're just trying to keep this, knowing that the house, DC and its brand, and needs repairs, it needs the refreshments, it needs renovating, but yet you just want to cover it all up with the new paint, with the shiny relaunches or so, but you say that we're not going to reboot, we're going to try to keep everything together. But what if it falls apart? You're just going to keep it going, and you're not giving a chance to bring in new fans. So going with even Scott Snyder's Absolute, again, for me,
I just learned another red flag. So for the Absolute, he said that for a long time these books are not going to cross over. And
yeah,
Absolute.
So they're isolated. You're trying to have, it's an Elseworlds or whatever, but again, you are stripping them.
So it's not a universe. That's the thing. If you call it Absolute Universe, you can't just call it Absolute Universe and then not have a crossover. That's not the way this works.
Again, what they want is Marvel, but they are taking the wrong cues and trying to do their own thing. It just doesn't work. It's like whatever lessons they're trying to learn, it's like they do the opposite.
Literally, the first Ultimate book, the first new Ultimate book in the new Ultimate Universe is a crossover literally called Ultimate Universe. So, not crossover. It's literally Earth 1 all over again. And Dave makes a good point. If they were going to do basically Earth 1, why not just continue those graphic novels and just say the Wonder Woman ending didn't really happen, where like all the world becomes ruled by women. I swear, I remember they tried to tell us that was an alternate universe. In fact, it even showed up in Grant Morrison's Multiversity. But I'm like, that can't be one universe. The Wonder Woman book makes it so it can't be. Batman, Superman, maybe, but Green Lantern and Wonder Woman specifically cannot be connected. Okay, it cannot make it so it's not a shared universe.
Right. So just with everything that DC is trying, just go back to the documentary and it's just a hamster on a wheel, a very dumb hamster, um, doing the same thing over and over and not learning anything from it. So with the absolute, it's what, and me and Jid talked about this, was we thought it was going to be like you're embracing basically it. Snyder said this is New 52, but in a sense, he wants the dark side being the main villain and the world to be darker.
And he wants the attention of he knows that's a buzzword because they know that this sells. The problem is this is essentially, you know what this is, Brit? This is literally what it is. What's our number one criticism with stories like Immortal Beloved? It starts with a B and ends with the word switch.
Yeah, a bait and switch.
It's a bait. It's literally a bait and switch, except this time instead of SuperWonder, it's the New 52. Because guess what? The New 52 was the first New 52 book. Literally was Justice League. It started with a crossover.
Yeah, he has whatever the one shot is showing of how the absolute universe is, created. But but still, to say that these characters are not going to know each other, they're just all isolated. So they're just like these rough anti versions of the main universe and influenced or whatever created over dark side. And again,
dark side energy, which I don't even know what that means. It's like, Scott Snyder has a really bad habit of creating all these different energies that are supposed to like run the universes, and I'm like, what the hell is this?
Exactly. And for Diana to, what we thought the absolute universe would be was you take everything that make these characters, who they are, and you, just like Marvel's Ultimates, you do different status quos or whatever of different characters, just like New 52 did, but they're still pretty much the same. If you were like the rumor of Diana being an archaeologist, but at the same time she she discovered the Amazons or something, or discovered that she was like a lost daughter of the Amazons or something like that. That is still going within Diana being connected to the Amazons, and it is not trying to make this badass warrior or whatever where she's raised in hell. Okay, we don't care about that. We don't want her flying on a skeleton Pegasus.
That's like not... you know what this is? It's just Scott's. I wouldn't be surprised if like most of these were just rejected ideas Scott had for like the dark multiverse.
Something like that.
I would not be surprised because we never saw any Wonder Woman ones. Well, actually we did, but I'm like, I wonder why.
Yeah, I think. Well, he said that first it was his Batman that he started. I think he said it was like 3 years ago he had this idea, and again he's just influenced by Frank Miller, and he wants to basically have his own version of Frank Miller's Batman. But that's basically, I mean, we've already seen Batman with no money,
many times, by the way. Brit, literally in the Zdarsky run, they just gave him back his cash that he lost in the Tinian run many years ago.
Yeah, and the only thing is that you're making him out to be a working class, an engineer. But again, I think in this Batman run, he was doing something like in a sense doing work, so I don't know, it's pretty much the same thing. You're just trying to make it seem shiny new. With Wonder Woman, again,
the character design looks good, probably because it's pretty much the New 52 design.
she's basically like Lady Sif mixed with a tribal warrior in a sense with the tattoo. That's basically what she seems to me. And again, turning her into like this dark witch warrior is like totally off base to what we thought Wonder Woman would be. Absolutely, we thought if she wanted to be an archaeologist, Diana would be, into the ancient times of learning and um bringing her back to her being an ambassador, being a teacher, um bringing in her supporting cast that we haven't seen in a long time, like Julia and Vanessa. Um, you know, things like that. Even, I don't know, make Diana queen of the Amazons or something. And something just not as dark as this is. But yet, of course, it's Scott Snyder. He wants the horror. And the thing is, he was um like hinting at that of saying he wanted to implement horror with superheroes. Did not think that his whole thing was creating a universe where that is what that is. Even with emo Superman, he has the hair, he's it's not shaved. He hasn't shaved, look like he has like a 5 o'clock shadow. His hair is you know, all over his head. He has a dark suit with look like lava cuffs and lava boots or something like that. Um, you know,
Mhm.
I don't know. We have to know more details of who these characters are. But if you wanted to emphasize New 52, we should have got the champion of the oppressed back. We should have got that Superman back. We should have got for Absolute Wonder Woman. We should have got the ambassador of peace, the or you know, or Diana, because Nubia is queen of the Amazons in the main universe. We could have gotten Diana being the queen of Absolute Universe or something
That
like
would
that.
that would have been interesting. But I think that's a good place to leave it. By the way, this is now the longest episode in the entire show at 3 hours and 17 minutes. So
Wow.
we beat 3 hours. So before we get to self-promotion, I think I can speak for Brit by saying we again want to thank you guys for an incredible year of doing this show. This show completely like supercharged this channel's growth, and I could not be more grateful for all the help and support that we've gotten because of the show. It is quite frankly very humbling.
It is. I mean, again, we started off with just talking on Discord and, you know, the the story of Special Bonds. And then for you, Jared, to have the idea of, okay, let's create a show to show our love for this couple and to basically,
And not just couple, just Superman and Wonder Woman as characters, because
as
not
characters
because
too.
here's the cool part. Here's why I think a lot of other people watch the show, because we don't because we also give a ton of attention to Diana, who solely needs it.
Right. Yeah, it's basically emphasizing the how great they are as individuals as well. And yeah, especially Diana, because DC neglects her character and is just like, she is the first lady of DC. She is the mother of not only DC heroes, but just heroes in general, you know. And to neglect her character, to not give her the respect she deserves is just unfathomable. But we as fans of her want to, push that knowledge of who she actually is and her purpose. We want to push that maybe more fans can speak to, you know, give DC some type of emphasis, that we want more Wonder Woman content, or, give her respect. Um,
Exactly. Oh,
but
by the
yeah,
way, Daniel brings up a good point. Thanks to Brit and Comixly, you both are currently the most documented source of Super Wonder lore available on the whole internet. If that's true, I will take that title
Yes. And honestly, I would believe that because a lot of the source with anything, again, these two are separate franchises, but they are under the same umbrella. And that's what makes their relationship so compelling and complex because they naturally can, be together. And you're putting these two characters that's supposed to be separate, you know, you're putting them together. And we are trying to, again, give accurate information of them as individuals, but also as a couple. Because many people, and you can, they have their head canons, but they make that out to be facts. And so when people are getting into these characters, they think that, oh, what someone said as a head canon is fact. And once they read the actual source material, your whole entire like perspective of the character changes, and there goes your investment. So what we try to do is be honest, be unbiased, but at the same time we are giving you our opinion, and we let you know that.
Based upon what we personally have read. That's it.
Exactly.
I've
Right.
always said I base my opinion with Jared reading Absolute Lois Lane book where she's an editor at Kotaku or BuzzFeed who screeches at people on Twitter. Yes, I would, and burn that book. But anyway, but really ultimately everything we don't act like we're the experts at everything that DC is. We just give you what we have observed, what we have read based on our own opinions. You do it as you will. You don't have to agree with us, but we're just give you our opinions. So,
Right.
Britt, on that note, why don't you tease the nice people at home about any particular stories we have going up?
All right. So as I've said throughout the night, um, the story with Jid is the first
It's
chapter
pretty
is
good.
done. You have read it, Jid has read it, and the only thing is finalizing a main title. But I can't wait to upload that for everyone else to read it. And it's basically, again, very important of showing who Wonder Woman is, her purpose, as again, the criticism that women face and what it means to, um, in a sense of the patriarchal, view of Wonder Woman and how she is supposed to challenge those notions as her relationship with Clark, her that whole thing of um, saying that she's reduced, with being in a relationship with him, and the perception that we see of even how the UN stripped her of her ambassador title because of her, you know, her appearance and what she represents. So combining all that into an actual story has been really fun, and I can't wait to start chapter 2, which is already outlined. Then we have Shelter chapter 2, which is almost done if Jared does not give me another idea to implement within it.
Eventually, we're
Um,
just gonna have to upload it because at this point, it's never gonna release if we don't just put it up there.
yeah, because
Because there's always chapter 3, Britt.
what we always try, well, what I want to do is put everything in one chapter. Is kind of like this is the setup, and it's kind of like okay, we have to put this in to go within, the other chapters. So yeah, we might as well. Jared did not give me any other idea, so I can upload this chapter and share that with everyone. Then we
Oh,
have
I'll
all of
be I'll be talking about a few ideas as soon as I hit end stream here.
see, and
So
this is why it's not going to be uploaded. Uh,
that's right.
just kidding.
Blame me. Blame me.
And then we have the other one shots, and I sent you a little sneak peek of Athens.
That's
Um,
such a good scene. I freaking love that scene you sent me. That is perfect.
Yeah, so we have that is another one where to make sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. But uploads will be soon, and I just can't wait for everyone to read all of our stories. And I really do appreciate this channel, this show, and just all the support all around.
Absolutely. So, as we always say, stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. She belongs to General Zod and Megatron. Zois and Max about for
Oh my
life. See you
God.
later.